Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson live on YouTube. All presented by FanDuel. We're coming at you. At least I am. From the Bill Belichick is a fraud, Patrick Mahomes is overrated, and Sam Monson was wrong about Tom Brady. Arena or studio. We're back to studio. So, you're coming at us from Connecticut somewhere.
Yeah.
Dad's basement.
Attic. It's like you. So it's they call it the bonus room. You know, that's what rich people have. There's a bonus extra room that you have at the side of the house. It's just got, a pool table and a podcast studio in it, apparently.
My room's a bonus. It's not an attic per se. It's just the top part of the house.
Yeah. So, it's an attic.
Bonus room with a guest room. So anyway, we've got a lot to talk about week 17. You ready to go?
Let's go.
All right. 16 games to review, playoff implications, the playoff picture, the week 18 schedule. It's all set. Week 17 started way back on Christmas Day. By the way, we will hopefully be a little bit quicker through some games rather than others that didn't mean as much, including this first one. The Dallas Cowboys get the win 30-23 over the Washington Commanders. Cowboys move to 7-8-1. Commanders fall to 4-12. Cowboys got up early. Commanders fought hard behind Josh Johnson making another start in like his 20th year of NFL action here.
God bless him. Josh Johnson, just an institution in the NFL. Remember last time Josh Johnson came in, it was basically the end of that game. Like, he came in pretty early on through an ugly interception where it's like, dude, what are we even trying to do here? Like, that would have been an ill-advised pass if you had Josh Allen's arm, and you don't. So it was just a really bad idea. And that basically killed that game. But in this one, Josh Johnson, gave a good account of himself. And yeah, Washington did fight hard, and clearly they were overmatched. Dallas was the better team. But it was a pretty good close game for the first of the Christmas matchups.
Yeah, I saw Dak Prescott, nice one-handed touchdown pass by Jake Ferguson. We saw an 86-yarder to Kevontae Turpin, really nice play, getting him isolated on, I believe it was Mike Sanderstill. And then Bill Krosky-Merritt comes back, nice little nifty 10-yard run, a 72-yard touchdown. Yeah, so a couple touchdowns there for Krosky-Merritt. Came down to a couple drives at the end where Dallas tacked on field goals and just put it out of reach to get the 7-point win.
And it was a huge game from every time you looked up, Deebo Samuel was making a play, just running through the defense as well. Like, it's sort of, you got glimpses in this game of what could or maybe should have been for Washington this season if they hadn't been so banged up, if they weren't, this deep into the quarterback depth chart. And like, the pieces that they had in place on paper heading into the season were capable of making the big plays. This was a really impressive game from Deebo to say, like, this guy is still a really good football player. They barely had Terry McLaurin for so much of the season. Their number one wide receiver. Like this, they haven't played as well, and they were always primed for a bit of a regression given how good they were last season record-wise. But, there are some pieces here for Washington to be good next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it kind of worked on both sides for Washington, where they showed some of those flashes on offense, which should have made them more competitive this year, especially if Jaden Daniels was healthy for much of the year. But the defense was my biggest question mark for them coming into the season, much like it was for Dallas. And I think that showed up for both teams in this one. Dallas ran for over 200 yards on the ground. They did sack. Washington did sack Dak Prescott 6 times, but just a lack of impact players in the front seven, I think, was going to be an issue for Washington this year. And another game where, look, Dallas gets the win, but even they, give up some explosives, as you mentioned, from Deebo, from Josh Johnson. The same year-long defensive issues showed up for Dallas, or else they should have in a year where their offense has been outstanding, they should have run away with this one.
Yeah. Bringing back the old mug check segment, because people are asking, does that show up the right way on the camera?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
So,
well, at least to me on the StreamYard. There it is. Nice. Well, because same one. Sport Radar. That's good. I'm going to try not to choke on the IM8 here today. So no playoff implications. I got to say, as a man who works in football, works in the NFL, yet also has a family, great slate. great slate of Christmas games.
I was a big
It-
fan of this. I really
yeah.
like this idea of, look, we're going to have a constant, 9 hours of football. It will be on all day. We have now dominated the NBA. You can go away now. Your time is done. This is the NFL's holiday. We have taken it over again. But every single game is going to be fairly inconsequential, feature quarterbacks most people have never heard of, and you don't really need to pay attention. It's
that should become the NFL tradition.
that should be what they're shooting for. Like games, Christmas games should be able to get flexed into it, right? Like the way you do for the good games. Once we get a couple of weeks out from Christmas, you should be able to flex the worst possible quarterback matchups into the Christmas slate. Netflix still gets the draw because people are going to watch, but it's whoever the two backups that nobody wants playing.
Yeah.
Like that's who you're seeing.
A nice present opening game. I don't mind a big game at night, though. I don't mind like a good little culmination into the Christmas night game. It's just, man, the day games, it's better off when they're not good. So I got no more use. I got no more use for that game. If you liked offense, you did not like the Minnesota Vikings 23, Detroit Lions 10. Lions eliminated from playoff contention, and all of a sudden, both teams 8-8 as the Vikings remain hot and win a game, Sam, with 3 net passing yards. For those who don't know how stats are tracked in the NFL, not in college football because college football's messed up, but you've got the quarterbacks passing stats, and then to get team passing yards, you subtract sack yardage. So Max Brosmer, second NFL start, 51 passing yards and lost 48 yards on sacks. And the Minnesota Vikings were the winning team.
Yeah. And the getting into the positive on the net column only happened late. I mean, he was in negative net passing yards for most of the game. And just in case, there was any question mark about whether Max Brosmer's performance or numbers in the last game that he started against Seattle was that just Seattle's defense? Was that a really harsh assignment and the poor kid never had a shot? Well, yeah. I mean, against Detroit, it didn't look an awful lot better either. I mean, the main takeaway from this game, as has been the main takeaway from a lot of Vikings games recently, is God, that defense is so good. Like I'm really disappointed that their quarterback situation has not worked this year because that defense deserves to be in the playoffs. Like it is playing out of its mind. It is absolutely destroying teams. It is doing such an amazing job against good quarterbacks and good offenses. And unlike previous years where it's kind of run out of gas, and in fact, against these Detroit Lions, albeit with different coaches, et cetera, it did that it was like week 4 or 5 where the wheels sort of went off the rails a little bit for this Vikings defense. And then it got back on the tracks and it's just been back cooking since that point, no matter which quarterback the Vikings have on the other side of the ball. It's so good.
Interesting storyline here with Jared Goff and the Lions against Brian Flores. Because remember, last year at this time, Sam, we were not only headed to Vegas for week 18, but headed to this showdown for the number 1 overall seed between the Lions and the Vikings. And our big question was, how is Brian Flores going to attack a Lions team that has carved him up? And
right.
Because football, man, what do you do with football when you're trying to figure out who, you use the phrase credit pie, which I like. Who deserves credit? Who deserves blame? Well, we talked about Goff handling Brian Flores' defense, but now was that a Ben Johnson thing? When you think about the Goff storyline, remember Brian Flores used to own Jared Goff early in his career. We're talking way back, Super Bowl, Rams and Patriots. We're talking when Flores was with the Dolphins, the zero blitz looks, and Goff had no answers, kind of looked a little panicky, threw interceptions and everything. But then all of a sudden, Goff and the Lions were the team that had all the Flores answers, to the point where we were like, why is Flores even blitzing? They have wide open receivers. They have answers. Goff's making plays under pressure, and he just sees the field and is confident and hits open receivers where he needs to every single game against Flores. And then we slowly started to see that work the other way. And now I'm asking, in this game, 6 turnovers. And look, some were unforced by the Lions, like just dropped snaps, early snaps. It was ugly. But this was reminiscent of Goff from 6 or 7 years ago against Flores, where now we have this without test when it comes to Ben Johnson and having answers to this Flores defense.
I mean, it did always sort of feel on a knife edge that him having the answers and being able to control. Like I remember there was one, maybe it was the first game last year, where it was like the stuff Flores was dialing up, it was working. I mean, they were getting free rushers in Goff's face and they were putting him under pressure. And then just at the last second, Goff was able to hang in there, deliver a pass over the head of the rusher, and just get it to his receiver. And at that point, once you get, beyond the rush, obviously the defense is in trouble. And they were just making plays. And it was like every time he just got it away, just made the play. And it's like every one of those is obviously working, and you put them all together, and that's how you end up carving up this like exotic defense. But it was really close. Like that was a razor edge between, a split second in 10 other plays. And suddenly you're talking about Flores dialed up the pressure every single play. Goff had nowhere to go. He got buried, blah, blah, blah. And like maybe that's the difference between Ben Johnson and not. It's that split second within the offense, whether it's the details and the coaching, whether it's just, having the right play call and taking a tick longer in each different play that's actually called. It always felt a little bit fragile. Yes, Ben Johnson and Goff had the answers, and they definitely had the upper hand in the matchup for a while, but it always felt like it wouldn't take that much for it to swing back in the other direction. And suddenly Flores is the guy who's dominating the matchup. And maybe that's all this is, right? Maybe this is just the pendulum has swung back slightly in the opposite direction, and suddenly Flores gets the win. But I think just overall this season, every time you watch the Vikings defense, it's so fun to watch.
They have been outstanding down the stretch, Minnesota's defense. The 6 turnovers from the Lions, again, some were unforced, some were forced, but Goff dropped a snap early on, may have been snapped early. We got a Jahmyr Gibbs fumble in there. Goff throws 2 picks, one just kind of a prayer under pressure. Another one, really great read by Harrison Smith with the interception over the middle. You have Goff strip sacked where he was about to get sacked basically from both sides, off of both edges. And then you just have a bad shotgun snap in there as well. It was, and the Lions had like opportunity after opportunity. Again, they only allowed 3 net passing yards. It was a 13-10 game into the fourth quarter. So the Lions had several opportunities. The Jordan Addison 65-yard run is what essentially sealed it for the Vikings, 20-10. So Detroit, their defense played well. Mac Brosmer got sacked 7 times on the other side for Minnesota. Plenty of issues for what happened there, missing open reads, moving into sacks, long developing concepts where nobody's open. There was a ball just slipping out of his hands. A lot ugly offense on the other side for Minnesota as well, but they made just a few more plays. But it was really those 6 turnovers that did Detroit in.
It's obviously a pretty small sample size, but so far there's not much evidence to back up this this PR narrative that Max Brosmer is the next Brock Purdy that people were putting out there at various points.
There'll be a next Brock Purdy for the next decade. Don't you worry. There'll be a next Brock Purdy every single draft cycle. So one last thing on this game here. So both teams are 8-8, right? And just the ebbs and flows of the season are interesting because we have multiple years of history of the Lions being a very good team. Never really snapped out of it. Offensive line issues came back to bite. Didn't get as good consistent quarterback play from Goff, especially against good defenses. You had Dan Campbell taking over play calling. There's already rumblings. Like we're already in offseason mode here. There's rumblings that they're going to start to steal their offensive coordinators back from Ben Johnson or whoever it might be, like figuring out what they're going to do. And now there's also, we think Brian Flores is going to get a lot of head coaching looks, get another chance where I think he did a pretty good job with a bad Miami team. And now what he's done with Minnesota, it's going to be an interesting view there for a couple reasons. Flores getting head coaching looks. Minnesota, if they have to get another defensive coach, what do they do with their personnel? Because Flores is in his own level of unique quadrant when it comes to building that defense. There's rumors about them trying to lock him up long-term, but that's not to keep him away from a head coaching job, right? It's just he just has leverage right now. So I think we're headed for an interesting couple weeks here for both teams, figuring out what the Lions are going to do with their coaching staff and what the Vikings are going to do with Flores, or what's going to happen with Flores.
He's also this unique case, remember, because a guy that basically sued, the NFL. He's got this and sued the NFL, and universally, everybody from his last sort of stint seemed to hate him. Right now, you look at what's happened to Tua, and you can make a case that maybe Flores was right. Like maybe Flores and tough love realized that Tua actually was never really going to work out. However long Mike McDaniel was able to, puppet master that whole thing and make it work for a period of time. Maybe Flores looked at that and said, "This is not the guy, and I'm not going to waste my time pretending like he is." But either way, it went sour the first time around. He ends up suing the league, which is usually not a thing owners embrace. So now you have this guy who's like, his track record would say, I mean, he should be at the top of every list in terms of retread candidates, right? Let's look at this guy. Let's bring him back in and let's at least talk to him. But he's not, I don't think, like, he will not be at the top of every interview list. Will he get some interviews? I'm sure. Like, I would be surprised if he goes through an entire cycle and nobody talks to him. But I don't know. Like, I would imagine the Vikings have a much better chance of keeping him than you would expect the normal, coaching, the normal coordinator with this kind of resume right now because of his history with the NFL. So that will be pretty fascinating. And as you said, if they do lose him, do they have to promote from within just to try and maintain some kind of continuity with that? I was almost going to use your term, crazy scheme. Or do they bring in someone completely different and just have to pivot in a wild new direction?
It's not crazy. It's just unique
Exotic.
Scheme. Exotic, even. All right, I got no more use for that game. Christmas night, though, we've got the Denver Broncos 20, Kansas City Chiefs 13. Broncos move to 13-3. Chiefs fall to 6-10. Broncos with some late game magic again. It was 13-13 into the fourth quarter. They lined up for a 4th and 1 instead of kicking the game-winning field goal. Chris Jones jumps off sides, extends the drive. Broncos get the go-ahead and eventual game-winning touchdown with Bo Nix throwing the pass to R.J. Harvey. And then Chris Oladukin, with his first NFL start, finishes with 66 passing yards. And the Chiefs still had an opportunity. A couple plays put them into range, but incomplete pass. Game was over in favor of the Broncos. So the Broncos sitting here at 13-3, still technically holding on to the number 1 seed. If they win next week against the Chargers, they'll hold on to the 1 seed. Patriots also tied at 13-3, have a chance at the 1 seed. But Broncos take care of business against a third-string quarterback in the Chiefs.
Yeah, and it kind of looked that way, right? Like Oladukin, I mean, he's athletic, he's talented. There were some plays in there that looked like sort of knockoff versions of Mahomes plays, but I mean, he's not viable right now in terms of like, can this guy actually, now this is against Denver's defense, right? Arguably the best pass rush in the NFL, albeit a Denver defense that has shown some cracks recently and maybe is more vulnerable than they looked for a lot of the season. But, Kansas City really struggled to move the ball. I mean, the first sort of score was set up by this crazy, amazing play. Christian Fulton dives across the face of the intended receiver, tips it up, and they're able to pick it off at the sideline, get the ball that way. Like, they were struggling to move the ball on offense. Every now and again, Oladukin would make a crazy play where he just buys enough time and finds a window and finds a pass. But it was a low-scoring battle. Both defenses were absolutely dominant. And then eventually Denver just had enough on offense because they're better.
Denver kind of ran the Chiefs playbook of underneath stuff, just converting on third down. Broncos were 11 of 18 on third down, and it felt like all of them were 3rd and 4, right? It just felt like 3rd and 4, they pick up 5, 3rd and 6, they pick up 7, 3rd and 3, they pick up 4. It was just over and over and over. They were controlling the ball. They had the ball almost twice as long as the Chiefs. So 8-possession game for each team, shortened game where Denver really controlled it. The turnover early hurt them a little bit, and just not capitalizing in the red zone, where it felt like at the end of the game, it's like, wow, the Chiefs actually have a chance here. It's 13-13. But they're just overwhelmed with no Rashee Rice. They shut him down for the season. No Tyler Thornton. We know that they're already working with third-string offensive tackles. So Chiefs are already hamstrung from a personnel perspective, but they did play hard. And ironically, that Chris Jones jumping off sides, what would have happened there, like they had a chance to stop Denver, drive the length of the field, or Denver was just trying to draw them off sides and maybe kick a field goal, right, to go up 3. And the way the Broncos defense against the third-string quarterback was happening, I mean, you trust your defense, but Jones jumps offside. It was the first penalty of the game. only penalty of the game for the Chiefs, ironically, there. So other storyline wise, so first off, by the way, I mean, again, social media is always fun during these games. It is amazing. This used to happen with Derek Carr, used to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo, but the Bo Nix discourse in the middle of a game ranges from Steve Young, Drew Brees, all the way to like backup quarterback. This dude's like Zach Wilson. It's unbelievable. When I know the truth is somewhere in the middle, I thought in this game he played a pretty good game, just kept the chains moving forward. And then the detractors are like, 4.8 yards per attempt. It's just he just kept moving the chains. He threw an absolute dime in the end zone too that Cortland Sutton could have had before the half that got knocked out. I thought Nix played pretty well in this game with the stats being just okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was just flying through the tape again this morning, and ironically, like the play that got intercepted at the beginning, Nick Bolton, the Christian Fulton, Nick Bolton thing, like you watch the replay of that, and I'm amazed what a play it was by Bo Nix. Like he gets out of pressure, is rolling to his left. It looked like the Trevor Lawrence plays that he's been putting one or two of each week in the last sort of month or so. And it's like he rolls to his left, and it's a beautiful pass. And somehow Fulton just like dives Superman style and gets a hand on it and bats it up with enough time and space for Nick Bolton to get under it and intercept it. Like I was impressed by the throw on an interception that was like, I mean, it's not like those interceptions where his receiver drops it and it's like it is a legitimately good pass to get through to his guy. But yeah, I think Bo Nix has been playing well. The other thing I wanted to talk about, Kansas City, last week, some people were upset by this. And I think this week it's maybe more obvious where they got nothing to play for. You know, they're down to third string quarterback. It's Christmas. Nobody's watching. Like, what? Who cares? Why are they not playing all the young play? Like, why are we seeing a bunch of geriatrics that have no real long-term future with this team? As opposed to a rookie class that in bits and pieces looks really good. I mean, Noah Williams played in this game, had a great game. A bunch of defensive stops, I think looked pretty spectacular and has been really good for them this season. Like obviously Christian Fulton, we talked about that interception. Like they were into the bench in some areas and playing pretty well. But like, why is this not the game where you're like, let's see if Brashad Smith, let's see what happens when we give him the full workload at running back. Like what's the point in, Kareem Hunt leading this team or Isaiah Pacheco leading this team in carries? Let's give Brashad Smith the full workload as a running back. Why is Jalen Royals not playing a ton instead of Juju Smith-Schuster? Because what's the downside to seeing what these young guys have?
Yeah, they're doing it a little bit on defense. We're seeing more Jalati over there. But yeah, I kind of like that idea of Brashard Smith. He did have the receiving touchdown, I believe, right? In the they had a short field. That was there.
And along where he had a good return as well, right? Like he's shown flashes this year, but now's the time, right? For the first time in years, the Kansas City Chiefs are playing meaningless games where they have the luxury, if you want to call it that bad teams have, which is like the only thing we have here is to see what we have in some young players, and they're not doing that.
I don't know. We'll see what they do next week. They're in an interesting spot because they play the Raiders. The Raiders with a loss will lock up the number 1 overall pick. The other storyline coming out of this was it was kind of like a swan song, kind of talking about Travis Kelce. Is this his last game at Arrowhead? I don't know if there's any inside information. All the reports are he hasn't decided. He's gonna wait till he'll know by March. He'll know by the league year, but he wants to take some time. But there's this assumption that this is the end for Kelce. And you never know how that works, right? Sometimes team wins it and you're like, hey, let's go out on top. Do you think you'll go out on top, Travis? Or do you not want to go out with a 6-win team? And, he could still play. Like he's not the same as he was 3 years ago, but he could still play. He could still get open. So part of the story was, is this the last game for Travis Kelce in Kansas City? And will next week be his last game in Vegas against the Raiders?
I feel like they probably are. It feels like it's trending that way. I mean, I think you're right that he doesn't want to go out this way, but I think last year or this year shows you that you rarely get to choose that. Like he probably didn't want to go out getting his ass kicked in a Super Bowl. So you come back for this year, you try and write it, and suddenly the Chiefs kind of they aren't very good. And actually, this ends up being a worse year than the last year. Now, do you come back again? And what if they're even worse next year? And then you go out on the back of a 4-win team. You know what I mean? Like you don't always get to choose. You want to go out on top, walking on. You want to do the Elway. You want to go out with the Super Bowl in your hands. Like this is it. This is the crowning achievement. most of the time you go out like Dan Marino, right? It's like I wanted to take the one last year, and the one last year stank, and I just got to leave now. So that's unfortunate. But you're right. He can still play if he wants to come back. It's not like they're going to tell him no. He's got another year in him if he wants it. But I sort of feel like this is the right year to walk away. It was a perfectly respectable season. It's been an amazing career for Kelsey. I mean, he's one of the best tight ends of all time. The touchdowns have kind of ticked up as well. Like he was always lagging way behind in the touchdown number relative to the other receiving stats that he's had in his career. That's kind of put him in more respectable. That's put him in more elite company in the last couple of years. But yeah, like I sort of feel like it's probably the right time for him to move on now.
We all know that the best analysis is when you can compare things to yourself, right? That's
Sure.
the best way of doing it. So is the wedding next year for Kelsey?
I don't know.
Because I also retired in
On the
my
wedding
wedding
year.
year. Yeah, you know, so even I also didn't go out on top. You like to make fun of me about a lot of stuff. I may have been the losing pitcher in the playoff game in my life, but I went out on a hanging slider that lost us the game, you know, and then you get married and it's time to move on. Your wife's like, maybe you're not good anymore. You know, like that's what Travis is going. That's what he's dealing with, because just like Cam Newton, I need to relate everything to me. And so clearly Travis and I get what he's going through. I get where he's going. So he's probably leaning toward retirement.
I thought you were going to go down the route of, sort of figuring out when it's time to move when you can't do what you used to be able to do. You know what I mean? And everyone I think that's played sports has gone through that, where it's like, my body will not do what it used to do, and therefore it's time to walk away. But it's interesting now this is something I can't relate to. When your starting point was so high that the declined version of you is still better than half the league. You know what I mean? Because that's what he's dealing with. Like Travis Kelce at his peak was the best tight end in the NFL. So this current diminished older version of Travis Kelce is still perfectly functional and still a good tight end in the NFL. So that's the tricky part where, you hear sometimes players go, this was the game where like I went up against this young guy who did something to me. And I was like, this is it. I'm done. I got to hang him up. Right. Because that game or that performance showed me that I just can't do what I used to be able to do. But it is interesting when you get a guy, because, I'm sure there are plays where Kelsey's felt like, that was bad relative to what I used to be able to do. That was disappointing or embarrassing or whatever. But if the net of all that is still pretty good, I don't know. I'm always torn between like, I'm no longer what I was, therefore it's just time. Let's go. Versus you only get one career, you're only going to be in this game for as long as you can. Like, let's string it out, cling on to it for as long as humanly possible until the NFL is done with you. The NFL is not done with Travis Kelce yet. So if he wants another year, he's got another year in him. But if he only wants to play at the level that he thinks he's an elite player and, that one of the most dominant tight ends in the NFL, well, then, the time is now.
Yeah. And then just to put a bow on this, like for this year, Kelsey, there were some bad moments, and they all happen to be high leverage, red zone drops and drop against Houston that sealed the deal. He's had flashes of the drops and, bad plays over the last couple of years. But again, that just because they came in bad times doesn't mean he's done. Right. And like you said, I think there's still more football in him if he wants it, even if he doesn't look like he did 3 years ago. Still knows how to get open and make an impact. So something to keep an eye on here. Denver controlling their own destiny when it comes to the number one overall pick. Number one seed, not number one overall pick. And then the Chiefs head to Vegas to play the Raiders to maybe control their number one overall pick if they can out-tank the Raiders. As of right now, by the way, the Chiefs would have the number 9 overall pick, tied at 6-10 now with the New Orleans Saints and Cincinnati Bengals. So Chiefs could be looking at the rare. We have Patrick Mahomes, but we're also picking in the top 10 option here for the draft. All right, let's go to Saturday. Houston Texans 20, Los Angeles Chargers 16. Texans move to 11-5. Chargers fall to 11-5. Playoff preview type of game. The Texans on Saturday afternoon. Nothing says playoffs like the Texans on Saturday afternoon, Sam. That's their window. And boy, did they start hot. C.J. Stroud hits Jaden Higgins for a 75-yard touchdown on the first drive. Comes back, hits Jalen Knoll, the other Iowa State rookie, for a 43-yard touchdown. Texans were out of their mind early on, up 14-0 almost immediately. But then it became a much closer game. Chargers battled back. Too much defense, though, on both sides, really. Chargers defense is good. They got over their 2 busted coverages, and the Texans defense, they've been great all season and causing problems for Justin Herbert and the O-line once again, which we'll discuss.
Yeah, they were weird plays because they weren't sort of true coverage busts where somebody just completely drops coverage. They were like plays that the Texans drew up that put one individual defensive back in conflict against a receiver running vertically, and he just was nowhere near covering him, right? It was almost like, that ridiculous argument that some jackass guy had with Mina Kimes of, you can't attack vertically against quarters. And everyone's like, well, what about all these plays where you do exactly that? And those plays are what we're talking about, right? The way you can attack quarters vertically is you move the safety out of the picture, you isolate the backside corner one-on-one, and you simply run past him. And that's, I think, what the first one of these plays was, or something very similar. And the second one was a different version, but the same idea. You basically isolate one guy in conflict, and now he's got to try and run with somebody who's already got full speed running a cut past him. And it was just like they just drew up 2 plays that completely screwed one guy. And before you know it, blink, 14-0. You're like, wow, that's kind of crazy. And obviously you kind of need, like, that's a play calling thing as well as an execution thing. And you probably are not going to catch them in the wrong defensive call for every play you're drawing up all the way through a game. So while it was a great start to a game, it was unlikely to continue throughout the rest of the game. As you said, the Chargers defense got itself together. They stopped ending up in the wrong coverage for whatever the Texans were calling. And then we got the defensive battle that we were expecting. But like the entire game was just the Chargers trying to dig themselves out of the 14-0 deficit that they had literally basically the first couple of plays of the game, where Stroud just goes over the top but houses them for a touchdown each time. It was bizarre. I can't think of too many games where just based off, I don't want to say luck, but based off 2 sort of coincidental correct play calls, you're 14-0 up, right? And then the rest of the game is as you expected it to be, but we changed the line for the game changes because we put 14 points on the board effectively before the rest of the game started.
Yeah, and then Stroud had an interception before the half. Was this was the Rich Eisen, Kurt Warner call? They were surprised that if I had to describe the broadcast, it was surprise. Everything was a big surprise. Anyway, not gonna. I like Rich. They were surprised that the Texans were throwing the ball before the half. Turns out they were right. I mean, Stroud throws an interception. The Chargers had 2 possessions in the red zone before the half. They missed a field goal and then had a drop pass interception. So from a Chargers perspective, some missed opportunities. From a Texans perspective, man, their defense is legit. They know how to take advantage of the using their pass rush and the O-line issues that the Chargers had. This was the 23rd offensive line combination for the Chargers this year. Their 10th different starting combination in just 16 games. Then it mentioned on the instant reaction, man, that doesn't include like Rashawn Slater. Like they were already starting without with a backup right tackle, right? They were already starting without Rashawn Slater. So he's not a part of all these combos. He never played a snap this year. But even after he was out, even starting with a backup right tackle, because they moved Alt over, they were working with 10 different starting offensive line combinations. And there were just certain plays in this game, like Justin Herbert converts a 3rd and 6 where he's about to get tackled and he stays up and he converts the throw. I retweeted something Jeff Schwartz put out there last night that was like, this is the perfect encapsulation of Justin Herbert's career. You have the right guard and right tackle. It looked like synchronized swimming. It was like synchronized swim moves on the right guard and right tackle. They both win at the exact same time. So Herbert's at the top of his drop. 2 guys bearing down on him, who he sidesteps another one, throws an absolute dime to Arondé Gadsden, who drops it. And
it's such a brutal play.
It was. And like, look, the Justin Herbert discourse is always fascinating, right? Oh, he's only good at this, or he's only got velocity, or he's never really won, or whatever you want to say. But you've made the point this year, man. He's playing so well given the circumstances. And I don't know if it's ever going to show up in EPA or yards per attempt or
This is
anything
the
other
thing.
than maybe the win column. But another game where he was just under so much pressure and still able to almost get the Chargers to win against a tough Texans team.
This is the thing, right? Like, we're going to get into this at some point because I have an MVP vote. And I'm seriously considering at the moment, without, actually fleshing this out and going through it in my head on paper. Right now, I'm not seeing a better candidate for MVP than Justin Herbert. And it's because if you actually watch the games, you see plays like you're talking about, right? Which is that play in the stat sheet is negative. That play, and no matter how you look at it, whether it's EPA, whether it's just box score numbers, there's no way that play does not show up negatively for Justin Herbert. And it's so I don't care what the box score numbers are, or even what the advanced numbers are in terms of what his MVP case looks like. Like, oh, Drake May's got a better MVP case. Matthew Stafford has a better MVP case. Look at their numbers. I don't care, because look at these plays where Herbert is making a sequence of these plays, not just one here and there in isolation, but like, this is his season. It looks like that. His season is his offensive line getting their absolute ass kicked, him making miracles happen, delivering an absolute dime to players who are either catching it or not, right? Most of the time, actually, in credit to them, they are making those plays. But in this game, as you said, there was the Gadsden play. He delivers a perfect third down play to Keenan Allen, who drops it when they're down 14-0. Like, Herbert is playing amazingly well, and the numbers will not back up that case. But this is why I don't really care what the numbers necessarily say. And what's interesting is I heard, Robert Mays was talking about this, and their podcast did a bit on the MVP. And Robert Mays was sort of talking about how, he's looking at it like, well, no MVP in history has won the award with this sort of statistical case or whatever, backing him up, right? Almost as a sort of, the award should be decided based off the historical way the award has already been decided. I'm like, I kind of fundamentally disagree with that. I don't really if Herbert won this year somehow, right? And this had been a unique statistical case, like no one would that make him an ill-deserving MVP just because his numbers are worse than any MVP beforehand based off certain numbers? Like, if you have a vote for the thing, I think you just need to be asking yourself, I mean, this is the brief, right? Who is the most valuable player in the NFL this year? And in my opinion, I don't know that you can come up with a better answer than Justin Herbert based off the supporting structures around him. Like, Bobby Hart was starting at left tackle in this game for him. And literally the first legitimate third and obvious passing situation, Bobby Hart might as well have not been there, right? Like, just hard inside move, and Bobby Hart just waves at him as he goes by. Instant pressure. It's like that. Nobody else is dealing with that right now.
The one place where I'll disagree is that I don't believe Herbert's case is the best. Like, I still wouldn't put him above Drake May or Matthew Stafford or maybe some others, but there's just the discussion and what he's had to deal with versus other quarterbacks. I think it's worthwhile, right? I think it's been an impressive overall season for Herbert. And then there's been these flashes where he has put the team on his back and carried them in difficult situations, including way back against Denver in week 3. So what we won't get an opportunity to see, had the Chargers won this game, they would have been playing for the AFC West against Denver, for the division, for the potential number 1 seed. But you're not going to get that. So I don't think Herbert's going to actually be in the MVP case, but I just think it's another year. Like, not every year has been like this for Herbert. Early in his career, he was dealing with bad pass rush, and last year was more of a lack of playmakers, but pass blocking, I should say. But it's just been bad, man. Bobby Hart was getting the start, as you said, first time playing left tackle in 3 years, and he got benched in this game for Austin Deculus. I mean, the whole thing is rough for the Chargers. And again, I think this playoff year is interesting because I think every team is stronger, like significantly stronger on one side of the ball than the other. And for the Chargers, you would say you trust their defense more than their offense. For the Broncos, their defense more than their offense. The Texans, their defense more than their offense. And I think not that you don't, just more than. That doesn't mean their offense can't play well. But this is like an example of what's going to happen in the playoffs. Like, how how are the Chargers going to overcome their O-line issues against these other top defenses, which include the Texans, probably the top defense. So credit Houston, man, because they take advantage of these situations, made more plays, made what they needed to do. Stroud hit the deep throws that were there early, and then they kind of leaned on the Chargers, ran the ball a little bit, gave them some opportunities, but they cracked down defensively once again, showing that Texans probably have the very best defense in the NFL.
Yeah, it was difficult, though, to kind of draw conclusions from, because going into this game, you're like, we're going to get an idea now of whether this Chargers offensive line is so bad that it will be the thing that stops them winning playoff games, right? Now, they lost this game. So if you were looking just simple, results-oriented analysis, you would say, yes, it is the reason they're going to not win playoff games because they lost. But really, it was the defense in those two plays right at the start of the game crapping themselves that lost them this game. I mean, they spotted Houston 14 points, and outside of those 14 points that they spotted them, they won the game, right? So I don't actually think we got a real conclusion on whether or not the Chargers can win playoff games against good football teams with amazing defenses with this offensive line, because they kind of did, except for the two plays where their defense dumped themselves early. It was a weird game where I don't think we actually got a resolution on that.
I mean, I think we saw it's going to be tough for them to score 20 points, and then their defense is going to have to play perfect. So anyway, Houston's playing next week. There's still a chance that they could win the AFC South. They're playing against the Colts. I don't know if they're even going to see Phillip Rivers. Might be Riley Leonard getting the start there for the Colts. They would need the Jaguars to be upset by the Titans at home next week, and there's still a chance at the division title for Houston here.
What a run for Houston, by the way. I mean, this is what,
unbelievable.
Eight straight wins now. They've gone from like they have work to do to just make the playoffs to they're pushing themselves further and further up the seeding into that magic number of the 5 seed at the moment. Forget whether or not they can actually pull off winning the division and jump up even further. But like they've put themselves into that 5 seed number, which is the important one for you might have to go and play Pittsburgh or Baltimore or whatever. Like they've gone from, are they even going to make the postseason, to suddenly they're in the most coveted wild card spot that there is based off this incredible run of games.
Yeah, as of right now, Houston sitting there at the 5 seed, which would be, look, I think Baltimore's still probably more dangerous than Pittsburgh in a 1-game setting, but it's either at Baltimore or at Pittsburgh if you're the 5 seed. And Houston, once again, in a game where, by the way, Derek Stingley got banged up, missed a couple plays. Kamari Lassiter at corner missed a couple plays. That looked like that came back to bite him for a minute. But when Lassiter's out there, Stingley's out there, ball hawks in the secondary, the same old Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter are going to get 5 to 9 pressures every single week. I mean, they're just very difficult to move the ball against. Even when, look, the Chargers tried to run the ball too. Like on paper, you would say Houston's a little bit lighter up front, will run the ball, but their linebackers are active. Like there's no real weakness to this Houston defense right now.
By the way, since I'm running the Justin Herbert hype wagon, the play where he just trucked Derek Stingley on a scramble was nuts. Like Stingley laid an absolute lick on him, and he just bounced off it. Like it wasn't like Stingley's a big, powerful corner and nailed him, and Herbert just kept on going. That dude is even scrambling. He's pretty insane.
He is, and he's got the broken hand, which doesn't affect his legs this year, which is different. That's what makes Herbert interesting. This is what makes the playoff fascinating, man. There's been games where Herbert's put the team on his back, and we'll see if he could do it come playoff time.
You mentioned it when it first happened, but it is funny how fake that his hand looks. I mean, it just genuinely looked like he's walking around there with a prosthetic left hand.
Yeah, it seemed like he got banged up a little bit in this one again, the hand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't imagine there's a way of avoiding that hurting during an NFL football game, particularly with his offensive line. I mean, sure, there's screws and plates and whatever else he's had bolted into that hand, but it's going to be sore.
There's a chance they could rest him. They could rest him this week, the Chargers. They are because the Texans want to win to give themselves this outside chance at the division just in case, but also have that 5 seed. So Houston still wants to win, but the Chargers probably a 6 or a 7, whether it's go to New England or go to Jacksonville. So I think they have a chance to maybe rest Herbert for a week if they decide to. See what happens. John Harbaugh, though, so Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh likes football.
The crazier
Anything
Harbaugh.
else on the Saturday game here?
Nope.
All right, Saturday night, the Baltimore Ravens kept their season alive, 41-24 over the Green Bay Packers. Ravens moved to 8-8. Packers fall to 9-6-1. This gave the Ravens the opportunity to watch and root for the Browns yesterday. The Ravens rooting for the Browns, and it came good. Browns got the win 13-6, and we now set up a showdown next week, Sunday Night Football, Baltimore Ravens, Pittsburgh Steelers, battle for the AFC North crown.
Did you see the little social media back and forth between the Ravens and the Browns?
I did not.
After the game, the Ravens were like, or after the game yesterday, the Ravens were like, I forget what their tweet was, but like, credit to the Browns, blah, blah, like, thanks for coming through for us or whatever. And the Browns quote tweeted and were like, don't think we did this for you. It's pretty, yeah.
I love that. I love the, when you got to root for a division rival over the other division rival. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So two big stories of the game, both sides. Let's start with the Ravens. Ravens ran for over 300 yards. Derrick Henry, 36 carries for 216 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then on the other side, it's Malik Willis and what he was able to do for the Packers. It was Malik Willis against Tyler Huntley. Both quarterbacks played well, but from Baltimore's perspective, a week after the big story is, hey, you have a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. You have no Derrick Henry. He doesn't touch the ball within the last 12 minutes of the game. The Ravens were one of those. Never again. He had over 20 carries in the first half, almost 20 again in the second half, finishes with 216 and the 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. This was the game that I've been expecting to see more of from Baltimore this season, which is like, okay, obviously something isn't quite right with Lamar Jackson. He's not 100% even when he's out there playing. It's not what we're used to seeing. So why not try and take some pressure off him by just running Derrick Henry mercilessly at a defense? Now, obviously that takes a defense that can't stop him to do that. And that was part of this equation here is it takes 2 to tango, and Green Bay's defense could not stop Derrick Henry at any point in this game. And so, of course, you just keep running him until they can. But this was like the game where they just ran Derrick Henry all the way through. Tyler Huntley played well in a sort of, hey, 4 yards average depth of target, just don't screw this up kind of way. And that's all he needed to do, obviously. But it wasn't the same as Malik Willis playing well. Malik Willis in this game, I think, was genuinely phenomenal. He was playing incredible football. Like, the first drive, I think, from each team almost summed up the game for me, where it's like Baltimore has this slow, methodical, Derrick Henry led drive, and they score a touchdown. And then Malik Willis gets the ball, and it's like blip, big bomb to Romeo Doubs, blip, big play for a touchdown, and we've answered. It's like this was how this game was going. The Packers couldn't start Derrick Henry at all, and Malik Willis is out here like dealing, and it might not be enough because the Ravens are just pounding the football with Derrick Henry.
Yeah, the Ravens went over 8 minutes, over half of the first quarter on that first drive, 13 plays, 75 yards. And what you just mentioned, Malik Willis, 2 plays, 69 yards. Dobbs and then Christian Watson up the seam. Malik Willis finishes 18 of 21 for 288, passing touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 60 yards on the ground. And the next leading rusher on the Packers was Emmanuel Wilson, just 3 carries for 16 yards. So we talk about quarterbacks putting a lot on their shoulders. And look, it's a low volume game because the Ravens, time of possession, they must have doubled up the Packers as well, right? Yeah, 40-19. 40 minutes and 16 seconds, the Ravens had the ball. Packers were under 20 minutes. So you didn't have a high volume game, but Willis with very little running game. So he added the rushing yards for the Packers and then goes 18 of 21 with a couple drops and getting hit while he was thrown in there. Willis was absolutely dealing in this game. So it was a huge story because he's a pending free agent. We've talked about Matt LaFleur, his ability to develop Malik Willis. And I thought at first, the first couple times we saw Malik Willis last year, it's like, oh, they're playing to his skill set and they're giving him some easy throws. I think that's even evolved right now. Of
course it is. Yeah.
He's ripping the seam, ripping the deep outs that Jordan Love hits all the time, the deep ball to Dobbs, and then the keepers for touchdowns. All of Malik Willis's skills on display in this one.
If you compare the game plan for the first Malik Willis game where he had to come in for an injured Jordan Love, and the last thing everyone had seen is abysmal Malik Willis play in Tennessee, where it looked like he couldn't play quarterback at the NFL level. If you compare the game plan for that first game versus the game plan in this game, it's two different offenses. Like the first one was, we've got a game plan, did really well in that offense. This was like, we're just tossing him the keys and saying, go play football. And I saw his PFF game grade. It's like 96 or something for this game. Like it's in the category of like, this might be the best single game grade any quarterback has had this season. I haven't scanned their game grades overall, but like, he was absolutely incredible in this game. I think made himself a ton of money heading towards free agency this year. And all in a losing effort.
Apologize that Sam may have frozen up just a touch there on remote location there, but we caught most of what you said there, Sam. Yeah, Malik Willis is a free agent. I think will make himself some money. This is maybe a 2-quarterback first round. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of time to go throughout the draft process here. So again, we'll see. But Malik Willis, for a guy who had developmental tools coming out, but was just an inconsistent pocket passer and inconsistent with his accuracy, and all of a sudden he's making every single throw. And look, I think we've talked a lot about Matt LaFleur being, all over the place as far as fire him and this and that. And, the fact that he has now gotten the last 2 great years out of Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers has had 2 great years out of the last 8, and both were in the middle of being with Matt LaFleur after he, bought into LaFleur's system. The development of Jordan Love, who was a developmental late first-round prospect, right? He had some warts coming out that needed to be ironed out, and they've been ironed out. And now you have Malik Willis, who the Titans gave up on. Like, Mike Vrabel wanted no part of Malik Willis as a developmental quarterback, and the Packers flipped a 7 for him, and all of a sudden he looks like a completely different guy. So that should not be lost on what Matt LaFleur has done. You could say, what about game management and, maybe blowing this game with a big opportunity to try to sneak the division or what have you. But LaFleur's done a great job with quarterback development, and credit Malik Willis for playing as well as he has, both in relief outings and then in a start like this, where he's doing it all. So,
doing it hurt. Like, clearly he was injured. I mean, he came into this game injured. Like the last game against Chicago, he got sacked with like the last play of regulation, went out there, gutted it out through overtime with an injured shoulder, delivered a dime despite that injured shoulder. Clearly in this game, he was a doubt coming in, played despite that injured shoulder, and non-contact injury. Just ripping a pass, doubles over and is like, man, the shoulders, and he comes out of the game briefly, goes back in. But like, clearly he's not 100%. And posts this type of performance, which our live fact checker, Ben Stockwell from PFF, tells me is the second highest quarterback game grade this season, behind only Brock Purdy the other week against Indianapolis. So Malik Willis in this game played basically as well as any quarterback has in any game this season. And remember, like the turnovers, we're talking a lot, they're mostly botched snaps, like centers that aren't supposed to be centers. For the second week in a row, they can't get the ball back to the guy it's supposed to be. And that's where Green Bay couldn't stop Derrick Henry. But the other thing is their turnovers they kept just botching an exchange.
End of the game. And when we get into the offseason and free agent time, we'll talk plenty about Malik Willis and which teams. I saw a lot of people want the chat already is naming teams: Raiders, Vikings, Dolphins. I see a lot of Dolphins connections there, especially if Mike McDaniel's back.
Right.
The bigger question with Willis, he had the shoulder injury coming out of the Bears game. He throws the deep out, and then the shoulder pops up again. He was getting checked for a hamstring in the middle of this game. Honestly, that might be the biggest question is he injury prone after just limited time, and he's got shoulders and hamstrings and all sorts of stuff popping up now?
I think the biggest question is now, what's the dollar figure? That I think is the most fascinating thing. Obviously, which team he ends up going to is interesting, and we'll track that and blah blah. I think a big variable in it is how much money are we talking about now? Like I think he's made himself a lot of money. It's not, as you said, it's not the world that it used to be where the second a quarterback shows anything, they're getting traded for and it's crazy money and blah, blah. We're not AJ Feely. We're not Kevin Cobb type world. But I do think in this landscape where most quarterbacks require a trade to get them, or they're already big money quarterbacks. Like it's going to be difficult to go to Kyler Murray and say, hey, how about $15 million a year based off what he's like, the status that he's already built up. In this particular world, I do think that there's quite a lot of value attached to Malik Willis. So I don't know if some of these teams are eliminated immediately because they can't go where the contract's going to need to go.
And it's just intriguing enough because we saw Malik Willis in limited time with Tennessee look awful. We've seen just enough, a couple games, few starts in Green Bay where everything looks better. And then the rest it's still mystery box though, right? It's enough of a mystery box, but
Right.
there's enough of development curve plus tools that make him different than, say, Justin Fields as a bridge quarterback last year or Daniel Jones as a 1-year, $14 million flyer. So it'll be a fascinating off-field or off-season discussion here.
The other thing from this game is obviously Derrick Henry was the story on that side of the ball. He's now, I mean, not now, he's continues to just tick off kind of career milestones and moving himself further and further up all-time lists and records and all those kinds of things. Couple that fell or changed in this game. Only LaDainian Tomlinson and Emmitt Smith have more career multi-touchdown games. And obviously he had multi touchdowns in this game. What did he get? 4? And then that moved him, I think, within 2 of Marcus Allen, who's 3rd all time in rushing touchdowns. So he passed Adrian Peterson in this game and closed to within 2 of Marcus Allen for 3rd all time behind Emmitt Smith and LaDainian Tomlinson. So, I mean, he's putting himself really, really high on these all-time record lists now.
Yeah, Henry was outstanding in this game. And as you said, thought you might see more of these Ravens games as Lamar Jackson was playing hurt or the times that Huntley has had to play, just straight up feeding Derrick Henry. And they did, man. And from a Packers perspective, rough on defense from a run defense standpoint. Got beat up front. Henry had a clear run into the secondary far too often, including the 30-yarder that essentially sealed it. Huntley managed the game well. His best throw was his longest throw is 13 yards, touchdown. Nice throw to Zay Flowers for a touchdown, but it was pretty much hold the fort while King Henry racked up the yardage. So it sets up the Ravens Sunday Night Football against the Steelers next week in Pittsburgh. Lamar Jackson was dealing with the hamstring earlier this year. Other stuff popped up in the injury report. The recent injury is a back contusion, I believe, right? Just like a knee to the back, which didn't look awful.
Look completely innocuous.
Yes. And then he runs off the field. And it's like, oh, he's out, like almost immediately ruled out, and then missed the following week. Yeah. So I don't know where we stand here. I'm smart enough to not be like, are the Ravens better with Tyler Huntley versus, Lamar Jackson? I don't think that they are, but a banged up Lamar Jackson, will he force himself back for this game with the playoffs on the line? It's something to keep an eye on. And by the way, because of this injury, I mean, there were articles written this week about Lamar plays video games too much. Does he care enough? I mean, stuff's coming out to the point where people are like moving Lamar Jackson out of Baltimore, right? I mean, we've played this game before a couple of years ago, and Baltimore was like, no, we love this guy, bring him back. We just wanted to wait, see what the market said, which was nothing. Yeah. But those stories are already coming out, and it's like a big week in Baltimore here, Sam. Guy that's battled multiple injuries. We've talked about Herbert a ton. Like Herbert gets out there, he plays with 6 injuries, and can Lamar come back and be the guy to win this one-off game for the Ravens against Pittsburgh?
I mean, they're definitely not better with Tyler Huntley than they are with Lamar Jackson. However, if the change in quarterback changes the game plan, because their best game plan is exactly what we just saw against Green Bay, which is run Derrick Henry 35 times and try and rack up 250 yards on the ground, right? If that is only a game plan that exists because Tyler Huntley is the quarterback, then I think it does become a real question because Lamar Jackson will not be 100% healthy, whatever percentage it is, whether it's the hamstring, an ankle, a back injury, all of it put together. Whatever version of Lamar Jackson goes out there this week, if he plays, will not be 100%. So, and not 100% Lamar Jackson this year has not played the way multiple-time MVP Lamar Jackson has played in the past. So a diminished version of Lamar Jackson who might change the game plan to something less ideal. I mean, that does become a question of whether you want to take Snoop Huntley out of the lineup to put Lamar Jackson back in there. Obviously, Lamar is a better quarterback than Snoop Huntley. He's a multiple-time MVP, and Snoop's only a Pro Bowler. But does it change the game plan to the point where suddenly Derrick Henry is not like he should be the focus of this game? Obviously the quarterback is the most important player in any game, but like Derrick Henry needs to be the single focus of this offense into this game. And if he isn't, then you need to start thinking about putting the quarterback in there that makes him that.
All right, something to keep an eye on this week. We'll have more on that probably Wednesday, certainly Thursday in our preview show. We'll get to Sunday's games in just a second here, but you know how fast the NFL game days move. One big play and everything changes. That's why live betting on FanDuel is a game changer. With FanDuel, you can bet in real time while the game unfolds. Score just flipped. You could jump on a new spread or a live money line. That wide receiver's heating up, well, you could bet the next touchdown score or total yards. That drive stalls in the red zone, you could take a live field goal prop or fade the total. Live player props, team totals, drive results, updated spreads, next play markets. It's all there. It's fast. It's fun. And with FanDuel, your live bets move as quickly as the game does. So whether you're riding momentum or fading the hype, FanDuel puts you right in the middle of every moment. Visit FanDuel.com/33rd to download the app and bet the NFL live all season long. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas and affiliation with Kansas Star Casino or 18 plus in D.C., Kentucky, Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Paid endorsement.
All right, before you get into Sunday, I'm going to let you finish, but we need to give a shout out to It's Shiggy in the chat, who is continuing the Christmas gift giving season, and 10 memberships were gifted out to people. So big thanks to the chat.
We will, for members, we're trying to debate when, but we'll do some sort of, maybe we'll do week 18 watch along. We'll see. I haven't talked to you about it yet. We'll figure out. There's two big games on Saturday. Two of the winning in or massive playoff implication games are on Saturday. So we'll figure out when the next watch along is for members. But whether it's a little bit of week 18, certainly during playoff time, trying to figure out when the next one will be. So appreciate the gift giving in all of our members here. All right, let's go. New England Patriots 42, New York Jets 10. Sorry, 42-10. They tacked on a late touchdown.
Might as well have been 3.
Drake May. Yeah, what was it 42-3 until the fourth quarter? Did I tune out? Maybe. Drake May, 19 of 21 for 256, 5 touchdowns, and just a dominant offensive performance for the Patriots, who scored touchdowns on their first 6 possessions, 5 in the first half, 1 in the second half, dominating against the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, an absolute, belt to ass beat down. They dominated. Everything was good from their point of view. The Jets were a disaster. Our friend Arif Hassan tweeted, like, this is embarrassing even for the Jets. And that's kind of what it was. I mean, the Jets, they look like the most tapped out on a beach mentally team in the NFL at this point. Like, they're just desperate for the offseason to arrive. Nothing good is happening for them at the moment. Brady Cook's kind of frustrating at quarterback because I do think he does quite a lot of nice things, but you're never going to get a game where he doesn't have at least one, if not 2, multiple horrific, crazy decisions where it's like, dude, that's not a play you can make in the NFL. Like, just lofts the ball straight to a middle of the field free safety who was always going to make it over to the sideline. Maybe they don't when you're playing college, but they do in the NFL. Tried to fit it in there. Like, if the safety didn't exist, it would have been a perfectly nice throw, but the safety did exist and was always there, and it was going to be an interception. And then, Drake May and the Patriots offense just absolutely murdered the Jets.
5 passing touchdowns for May on just the 21 attempts. This is a Lamar. It's a Lamar game. 19 of 21 for 256 with 5 touchdowns. That's a Lamar type stat line. 5 touchdowns to 5 different receivers. Stephon Diggs with a big game with 6 for 101. We also found out later in the week here, Mac Hollins was placed on IR. Pretty important piece of that Patriots receiving core, big body outside receiver that they don't have. Still didn't miss a beat without him. We'll see what happens playoff time. But Efton Chisholm comes in with a touchdown, undrafted free agent who was getting a ton of hype during the preseason. Hunter Henry, Ramondre Stevenson on a nice little wheel route up the sideline where they got him isolated. On defensive end, Eric Watts. So good play design there. Austin Hooper with a touchdown as well, but really clean game from Drake May. So much so that ESPN's QBR had him with a 99.8 on their 0 to 100 system. I believe Seth Walder said it was the highest game of all time. There's a couple other 99.8s in the system for ESPN, but maybe the highest of the 99.8. So pretty impressive game by Drake May.
Yeah, by a bunch of different measures, it was basically the best game of all time. Benjamin Solak was tweeting out where it is in EPA per play. By the EPA per play, like usually those numbers, like a high number is a relatively low fraction within one, right? Whereas it was like 1.26 or something. Like
it's crazy.
Every play, he was effectively adding out like a point and a chunk, which is just utterly ridiculous. This also must have been like he left the game with like 8.5 minutes left in the third quarter or something, right? This must have been like the earliest benching because your day is just done. You've completed the game that I can remember. Like I can't remember a quarterback leaving the game earlier than this for quite some time.
There's an old school New England Patriots beatdown. They ran the ball well, unstoppable as far as the pass game goes, and the Jets had, undrafted rookie quarterback Brady Cook, who just couldn't get much going, as you mentioned. So for New England, they moved to 13-3. They're tied with Denver record-wise at 13-3. They're going to play at the same time next Sunday. If Denver were to lose to the Chargers and the Patriots defeat Miami at home, the Patriots would have the number 1 seed. Again, we'll find out the Chargers what they want to play for, but so there's still a chance that New England could get the number 1 seed. So they were going to play at the same time. Denver and New England are going to play it out next week, most likely, but not really sure where the Chargers stand. New England would need help from the Chargers here to get that 1 seed.
Mm-hmm. I got nothing to say to that other than it's true.
Great. I mean, Drake May MVP.
Yeah, I mean, look, those are the three, in my opinion, the two obvious candidates, right? Matthew Stafford, who's been the front runner all season long in your race that you hate. Drake May, who's also been an amazing MVP case, but people have been like, his schedule's a cupcake, so who cares? And then, in my opinion, Justin Herbert belongs in the group with the other two as well. So that's the 3-horse race that I can see right now.
It's just a funny world because if you're talking about a race, like this game means nothing, but other than for Drake May, it like put him over the top in QBR, maybe in EPA,
and it does. Yeah, it equalized the stats.
Like it helps when voters like you at the end of the season look at the resume and it's like, oh, the stats for Drake May. Like
it's now, voters not like me.
Caught
it's
up
the other
Stafford.
ones.
What's that?
It's not. It's the voters that aren't like me. It's for the other ones that do look at the stats and are like, I can't possibly give MVP to a guy whose box score numbers and touchdown to interception ratio are not as good as the other guy. That's crazy talk. What are you saying? It's for those people. And you're right. Like that's what it did. It jumped. It almost equalized their numbers this game. Like it suddenly, if you want to make the Drake May MVP case, your statistical backup got an awful lot easier based off the back of this game.
Even though it's a late season game against the Jets, and if you were truly making Drake May's case, you would say, well, actually the Sunday night game against the Ravens or the early season game against Buffalo, even though it happened early in the season, it counts just as much as a week 17 or 18 game. You would make your case on some of those bigger games, but it helps the statistical case when you sit down and compare resumes at the end of the year. So that's where it was a big one, not the fact that they crushed an overwhelmed Jets team here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else on this one?
No.
Let's go. Jacksonville Jaguars get the win, clinch their playoff spot, 23-17 over the Colts. Jags now 12-4. Colts fall to 8-8. Jags can officially seal the deal on the division, the AFC South, with a win next week or a Houston Texans loss. But the Jags are sitting there now at the number 3 seed. I believe they technically have an outside shot at the 1 seed if the Broncos and Patriots were both to lose. Might be the last start for Phillip Rivers as well.
Old man Rivers.
Which was fun. It was fun for its time here.
Was it? I mean, it achieved nothing, right? I mean, it was just some stories. It was some nice giggles, some nice press conferences. We had a lot of fun with what his weight looked like. And then he played football, and it was kind of sad, really. Didn't achieve much. They lost games. They didn't stay alive. Nothing happened. Like if Riley Leonard was able to go out there and gut it out through whatever injury he was dealing with, and we just got to see a few games of Riley Leonard instead, would it have been any worse?
We got discourse on the state of quarterback play, that a 44-year-old could come in and read coverages and be a one step ahead of the defense, even though he's throwing pick sixes.
One step ahead of the defense until he calls the same check twice in a game, and then he gets pick sixed every time. Like that's the weakness of this whole, hey, old man Rivers has got 20 years of veteran savvy and genius. Only for 2 consecutive games, he's been picked off because a linebacker listened to his checks at the line and understood the second time exactly what he was going to do. That's kind of a flaw in that system of, it's all up here. It's in the 1 square foot of real estate above your eyes. That's where playing quarterback is. Just try and remember not to call the same check twice.
It was an interesting game, Sam. You didn't get the same. It wasn't as dominant from Trevor Lawrence. Still some really big plays in there. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, one really nice, well designed. We had a scramble, a QB draw in there, but there was an interception. Like the Colts hung tough in this one. They were feisty on defense. Sauce Gardner made his return, made a couple plays on the ball. We had Trevor Lawrence with kind of an ill-advised pass just before the half. Wasn't even ill-advised. It was kind of a great play by Jermaine Pratt.
It was an incredible play. I meant to go back and check on that. Like, how did Jermaine Pratt end up in coverage against Parker Washington in the end zone on like a fade?
He was just carrying, because I think it was a wheel.
Okay.
Look at it closer. But I think
it was an amazing
just
play.
Carrying the wheel. It was great
play. If the ball's thrown up there, it's like a jump ball in the end zone, and you expect the wide receiver to make the better adjustment and, basically beat him to the football at the catch point. And he doesn't. Jermaine Pratt just fights to maintain the good position that he had in coverage and ends up picking the ball off. Like an incredible play by a linebacker.
Yeah. Wheel route. He's got to carry it. I thought, Greg Olsen again on the call. I think Olsen did 2 of the Rivers games, by the way, out of his 3. Olsen broke it down pretty well. So Lawrence gets into scramble drill mode. What's that?
Contemporaries.
Yes, they are. Yeah, Lawrence just kind of left it inside a little bit. But yeah, it was a great play by Pratt. Ran with him, was in position, turned around. Either way, it was a big play because it was a 3-point game at the time before the half. Took points off the board for the Jags. They made a few big stops on the other side against Rivers, but Colts hung tough in this one. So, that interception from Lawrence, other than that, I thought, he had another one he got away with, but a couple big time throws in there. Had, Parker Washington was so good again in this one, open down the field and then just reverses field, turns it into a 37-yarder. This Jags offense, it's kind of funny because I'm trying to describe like the collapse that the Bucs have had. It's very interesting if you compare the way Trevor Lawrence has played with the Jags once he got most of his playmakers back. Travis Hunter's still hurt, but most of his playmakers back versus like what Baker's done with the Bucs. Baker got all of his playmakers back, and it's almost like he's forcing more passes. Lawrence, other than this one, really not forcing a ton.
Yeah.
We say every week, like, we don't know who the leading receiver is going to be. Is it Jacoby Myers? It's another Parker Washington game like it was 2 weeks ago against Denver. Lawrence is most of the time taking what's there, using his legs when needed, the 2 rushing touchdowns in this one. And it is a much more difficult offense to defend than it was earlier in the year.
Yeah, like the Colts were good in this game. I thought their defense was getting after Lawrence early. Like they put him under pressure. They were causing all kinds of problems. I think a huge variable in this game. This is what's really kind of interesting about their collapse this season. They trade multiple first-round picks for Sauce Gardner, and we've barely seen him play this year because he kept, he's got injured. He lasted, I think, basically 2 games before he got the calf injury and then is out. Came back in this game and then left again. So he's been dealing with this calf injury. And remember, Joe Burrow's calf injury, these are things that linger and don't necessarily heal the way you want them to. And when he left this game, apparently he was seen with a sleeve around the calf that was injured. So presumably he just re-aggravated it. But I think that Sauce completely changes what they do on defense. We saw that in the first couple of games where suddenly they're blitzing more. They're playing way more man coverage. Like, he transforms what they are able to or want to do on defense when he's in the lineup. And when he goes out of the lineup, it becomes this much more vanilla, easy to attack defense. And we've been criticizing that defense over the last few weeks for effectively collapsing, right? Sauce comes in, and for the first half, Indianapolis's defense is back to being really good, and they're causing Lawrence problems, and their turnovers at Jacksonville, unforced error, right? Setting the world of rugby laterals back 5 years by ETN just dropping it. And the Colts pounce on that. But like, overall, their defense was much better with Sauce in the lineup. And then I think the Colts still had the lead when he left the game. And when he leaves the game, suddenly the defense is different again. And that's when Trevor Lawrence kicks back into gear and goes back to being, the guy that's making all the plays, and they can't stop him. And Jacksonville ultimately eases away in the fourth quarter. But I think that Sauce totally changes this defense. And if they hadn't, lost their quarterbacks and fell apart on offense, and Sauce had stayed healthy, maybe this Colts team could have maintained position in the playoffs and still been really good. But between quarterbacks going down and Sauce going down, it's just a totally different football team.
I did see somebody tweet about Sauce Gardner, maybe even before the game, that when he was with the Jets, they were like 1-7. Now with the Colts, they're about 1-6, whatever it is. But Sauce's teams, because I think he's a fantastic player. Everything that you just said was football sound, Sam. Makes the defense better. We've seen him on.
He's a jinx.
He's 1-10 this year. If you're into quarterback wins, Sauce is 1-10 with one. He didn't even. The Jets didn't win a game with him on the field. And then the one win was the overtime win against Berlin, against the Falcons.
It's Berlin. The Berlin Thunder.
Sauce has not won a game in the States this year. He's Urban Meyer. Sauce Gardner's Urban Meyer. Unable to win in America. Actually, he lost. He played in London and Berlin this year, by the way. Played with the Jets and with the Jags. I mean, with the Colts. Anyway, we're just making some jokes here. I think he's a very good corner. It's just interesting that the Colts have collapsed since that trade. They're going to be. Yeah. I've seen some Colts fans. We'll talk about the Jags in a second here. I've seen Colts fans who are just. The Chris Ballard regime is fascinating because I think they've always, if you were ranking rosters, every year the Colts are somewhere between 14 and 18. And it rarely deviated close to 32, and it rarely got into the top 10, but it's just dead smack
middle
in
third.
The middle. Yeah, and but this year, for the first half of the season, it was all right, maybe they're onto something. Maybe being middle of the pack with those playmakers and with the offensive line. If you're just solid everywhere, defensive line solid, secondary solid, everything solid across the board, that's going to work. And it was working for a while. But even if Daniel Jones had stayed healthy, I still thought they were going to come back down to earth a little bit. We never got to see it play out. We saw kernels of that. Jones playing hurt, then injured for the season, and then they're just scrambling and they're pulling Rivers off the practice field for high school, and it was done. It's going to be an interesting offseason, though, for the Colts because they don't have the first rounders, and they've got another middle third roster, and seeing what they do with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's also obviously the collapse has been disappointing, but it is a brutal run that they've been on, just schedule wise. I mean, they've gone up against some really good teams, and even some teams who aren't necessarily that good, like Kansas City this year, who had Patrick Mahomes, right? They've lost some close games to good football teams with their quarterback situation unraveling around them, which is tough. And without the guy they traded 2 first-round draft picks for, with Sauce has missed most of these games. And as I said, does change that defense completely. So it's why I'm not completely, obviously now it's man, if we had 2 first-round draft picks, those would come in handy right now. But given the impact that it looks like he has on this defense when he plays for them, I wouldn't be that down on that trade yet. I still think there's every chance Sauce can justify 2 first-round draft picks if he stays healthy going forward.
From a Jags perspective, I thought a resilient game. Again, the offense had their struggles early on, but I think that they've found multiple ways to win offensively. Defense remains opportunistic. They did a nice job to crack down when they needed to, and yeah, they're playing for their division title next week with the win over the Titans. So Jags, can't say enough good things about how they've bounced back. Go all the way back to the collapse against Houston in the second half against Davis Mills. Their ability to bounce back, now win in different ways. And even with Lawrence, taking some points off the board just before the half, bounce back, found a way to put the ball in the end zone on the ground a couple times, get the ball to Parker Washington to make some big plays, and just like the way the Jags are playing right now, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was a difficult game for them because it wasn't easy for the first time in a while, and they really struggled in that first half. And then, okay, maybe it was Sauce Gardner going down, but whatever it was, they found their groove again and came back and eventually ended up making it look pretty easy. So Jacksonville, I think, are for real.
Poor Riley Leonard, by the way. They took Phillip Rivers out for the Hail Mary because we know he can't throw the ball 50 yards. Riley Leonard goes 0 for 1 with an interception on the final play of the game.
Which, by the way, it was a pretty good the Hail Mary got there, and
it was a good throw.
It was also in the general vague direction of Alec Pierce. And if you're going to try and find a 55-yard Hail Mary from somewhere, that's the guy I'd be aiming at. That was hilarious. They just don't call penalties on anything on Hail Marys. And I think that's probably the right approach because nobody wants to see that, right? Like, oh, here's actually you thought the game was over. Nope. Defensive pass interference. You get one shot from the one.
Untimed down at the one. Let's go.
Right.
No.
But that play, when you look at the sort of super slow-mo replay of the Hail Mary, it's like Riley, Alec Pierce is getting tackled at the time. And then to combat being tackled, he's got hold of somebody's face mask and is pulling him back. It's like there's multiple flags of this play. Like this, there should be yellow flags everywhere being tossed into the end zone. And yet, nobody wants that. So we just pretend we didn't see it and play on.
It's also why I'm just like this wet blanket when it comes to the successful Hail Marys. Like Aaron Rodgers did it again. Even Doug, earmuffs to my New England friends, Doug Flutie. If your entire and the funny thing is with Flutie, he always had this magic at other points. But if your legend comes from Hail Mary, which is Riley Leonard's Hail Mary was as good as any other Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary throw. Just got picked this time. Anyway, let's go. Next game. What is next anyway? It is the Miami Dolphins getting the win over the Tampa Bay Bucks. Dolphins 20, Bucks 17. Dolphins moved to 7-9. Bucks fall to 7-9, but it didn't matter. They needed the Panthers to lose, and that did happen. That sets up a almost certain play, win and in game for next week, Saturday afternoon, Bucks and Panthers. But man, another disappointing game for the Bucks, who are now 7-9. They're 1-7 since their bye week, which was the first week of November. They've won one game since late October, and it was against the Arizona Cardinals, who are reeling more than the Bucks.
Yeah.
And yet the Bucks will still most likely play. I'll explain the scenario in a second, but most likely play for the division title at home Saturday afternoon against the Panthers.
Yeah. So on the one hand, that part's still good. They've still got one game to get themselves back into their playoff spot. But man, it is wild how far this team has fallen. Now, to be fair, one of the things we've been saying is, look, they've been getting healthier, they're getting everybody back, and the receiving core is back to being basically 100% intact now. And that's it's paying some dividends. Like Jalen McMillan made a lot of plays in this game. Chris Godwin's made a bunch of plays. Okay, maybe they're not the receivers you would want to be making the plays within this offense. Like Mike Evans is usually the number one guy, and Emeka Ibuka has disappeared since all these guys have come back in. But whatever, they've got some guys making plays. The offensive line is banged up again, though, and they've kind of gone back to being a bit of a problem area, whereas theoretically that was the first thing to get healthy is their offensive lineman got back, and suddenly that group was better, and then we're just waiting on the wide receivers. So maybe the offense isn't as healthy as we're sort of thinking it was when everybody started getting back in the lineup. But overall, it just this offense has not been right basically since very early in the season when it was surviving off unrealistic, unsustainable Baker Mayfield magic. And some of that is still there. I mean, he was making some crazy plays, scrambling and, running around back there and making stuff happen. But there's too many mistakes. There's too much inefficiency in the offense. And like to put up the number of yards they did and only come away with 17 points is crazy.
Yeah, a little bit of garbage timey yardage, I think, at the end, but it's just the Bucs are playing losing ball right now, man. Like, but they came out. I keep thinking that they have all of the pieces offensively. I know what you're saying about the offensive line, like not having Tristan Wirfs is massive. But the same description I just said about the Jags, where Trevor Lawrence is settled in and you just trust everybody and you hit the open man and you go. And you thought maybe the Bucs would have that. And there's elements of it, right? Chris Godwin's getting his and Mike Evans and Abuka, and like you're spreading it around. But then there's just still a ton of forces in there from Baker, maybe too reliant on the key 3rd and 10 scramble. They just haven't settled in with all of their playmakers coming back. Bucky Irving coming back. I mean, if you put the on paper playmakers for the Bucs, is Evans still banged up or, a little bit older? Sure. Godwin's coming off of a knee injury, sure. But if you stacked up Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, returning Jalen McMillan, Emeka Abuka, and Bucky Irving, you're like, are there that many better on paper groups?
Yeah.
In the league? Not really. But they haven't played anything close to that. First drive looked great, and then Baker comes back. They a busted coverage touchdown gets the Dolphins right back to tie, and then Baker's forcing picks into double coverage. It's a lack of, I don't know, rhythm, consistency, whatever you want to say. The defense was better in the second half, but they have these lulls where they look awful. And then the offense, same thing. There just has not been a rhythm to this offense since about week 5.
I don't know what he was looking at on the interception where he just threw the ball straight to the middle of the field safety. Like that, again, there are certain plays where you're like, the quarterback is fooled by a really complex coverage and you understand the interception. Then there are ones like that where it's like, you know better than that. Like, what was that throw?
I don't know. From a Bucs perspective, they have the pieces. They haven't played good football in a while. It is very, very Eagles-like as far as the collapse. And look, you could make the argument that all their wins early on were fool's gold. You could construct that argument that the Bucs are really like a 5-win team that was disguised as a 5-1 team. I mean, whatever they were at the time. Like, you could make that argument. They beat the Falcons, Texans, and Jets all within the last minute of the game. They cooked the Seahawks defense. They had the very best performance against the Seahawks defense all season. Incredible. But you can make the argument that it's been fool's gold all season. We didn't make that argument. We went the other way and said, they survived. It'll get better.
Because everybody was hurt when they were doing that.
Because they had their center playing left tackle. They had their receivers hurt. They had receivers in and out of the lineup. They were just, they were beat up. They were surviving. And we thought, hey, things will get better. And they since the bye, since the first week of November, it's been pretty bad for Tampa. And all that said, a team that's 1-7 in the last 8 gets to play for the division title on Saturday afternoon. Now, the one scenario, tonight's game against the Falcons, unless I'm wrong on this, I'm pretty sure
you're the only person I've seen say this, by the way. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that I have yet to see anybody else make this point.
This was informed to me, and this is the scenario that Timo was talking about a few weeks ago, where if all 3 teams are 8-9, the Panthers are in. If all 3 teams in the AFC South are 8-9, they go to a 3-way tiebreaker. The Falcons were eliminated weeks ago because they never had a chance with this tiebreaker. So it involved the Falcons needing to win out and the Panthers and Bucs both being 8-9. Well, the Falcons, if they win tonight against the Rams, win next week against the Saints, they'll be 8-9. If the Bucs were to win next week, they'd be 8-9. All 3 teams are 8-9.
Here you go. But I've got confirmation, double confirmation. We've done our journalism. Next Gen Stats is backing you up. The Panthers, 8-8, can still win the NFC South, even if they lose next week to the Buccaneers, if the Falcons win their final 2 games.
Right. So if the Rams beat the Falcons tonight, which they're heavily favored to do,
yes,
it's moot. And then we're in a play-in game Saturday afternoon. if the Falcons pull the upset tonight against the Rams, the Bucs and Panthers will play Saturday afternoon. And look, if the Panthers win, they're in for sure. But if the Bucs win on Saturday, there's still a chance. If the Falcons beat the Saints, they're all 8-9, and the Panthers win the division.
Now, this puts me in direct conflict between I don't want this to happen to our friend Eric Eager because that would be sad, but it would be very funny in abstract terms if, Carolina wins, everybody's celebrating, and then this ends up happening, and they get dumped out anyway. Like that's an objectively funny thing to happen for everybody.
No, if Carolina wins, they're in.
All right, it has to go the other way. Yeah, it's Tampa
Right.
Bay. So then perfect.
Yes.
Then it's all aligned. That's exactly what we want to happen. We want the doctor to make the playoffs, and we want the hilarity of everybody in Tampa Bay thinking they've made the playoffs, and then suddenly the scoreboard pops up that Atlanta has stolen it, and they're dumped out anyway. That what they thought was a winning in game isn't, in fact.
Tyler Shuck, the best quarterback in the NFC South right now, screws over everybody and beats the Falcons.
Rookie of the year, according to Chris Olave. Chris Olave, by the way, phenomenal team hype man. I mean, he was, I forget when it was, might have been preseason, but like Chris Olave was one of the first guys talking up Charlie Smith, like to media. He was out there being like, this guy's money. He's amazing. He's going to be like, and he's out here tweeting Tyler Shuck, rookie of the year. Whatever about Chris Olave, number one receiver, how good is he, blah, blah. Like, dude's a hype man for your own team. Great teammate.
We'll talk about them shortly here. From the Dolphins' perspective, took advantage of the busted coverage early on. I thought Quinn Ewers was all right in his second start. I don't think there's enough from Ewers to say, hey, this is the guy going forward for the Dolphins, but good win for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was all right. It wasn't, I don't think, as good a performance as the box score number would say, but it was also against the Todd Bowles defense, which I think generally causes real problems for young quarterbacks. Like, I think this is probably pretty universally true, but like the more complex your defense, the easier it is to deal with when you're old man Rivers, right? And you've seen everything. And as long as you don't call the same check at the line twice, you're probably okay. For young quarterbacks, though, I think you do struggle against these more exotic, unusual defenses. And, look at what happened to Jackson Dart against Brian Flores the other week. He could barely move the ball. The fact that Ewers was all right to good, depending on where you want to put him on that scale, against the Todd Bowles defense, I think is like, that's an adjustment in his favor if you want to sort of move it in that direction.
Thrown to Theo Wees with the 63-yard touchdown on the busted coverage. Greg Dulcich with a nice game, 5 for 58, including a touchdown. That was a nice throw by Ewers there. There was once again the run game going for the Dolphins with Devin Achane and Jalen Wright. Yes.
There was a sequence I saw, and then later when I saw him, I saw his touchdown. I'm like, Greg Dulcich must have about 25 targets in this game. And actually, he only had 6. It's just that 3 of them came in the same low red zone sequence where they're like, I don't know what's happening in this sequence, but Greg Dulcich is scoring. Like they had a 3-play sequence in the tight red zone, and all of them were designed, one read plays for Greg Dulcich. I'm like, what? Why is this?
As they should be. Dulcich is great.
What are we doing? Why are we designing the entire offense for Greg Dulcich to score a touchdown?
All right, I got no more use for this game, but I'm still looking forward to Panthers Bucks. It's next Saturday at 4:30. Almost certainly a play-in game, but we'll see if that's going to be official. Let's go. Cleveland Browns 13, Pittsburgh Steelers 6. The Browns get the win to move to 4-12. The Steelers' loss puts them at 9-7, and that sets up their play-in game Sunday Night Football next week at AFC North on the line. Steelers and Ravens. So if the Ravens win, they'll both be 9-8. They'll have the tiebreaker. If the Steelers win, they're 10-7. Clearly, the division winners. Myles Garrett did not get the sack record,
and therefore
in this game.
Doesn't count for Steve's brain.
No, he's
no matter what he does next week. He could put it up. He could clear it by 5 sacks next week, and it wouldn't count in Steve's head.
If he sacks Burrow 4 times, I'll give him the record. We'll say it counts. Fascinating game here where the Steelers, they had 5 possessions in the fourth quarter. Let's get into it. What were your initial thoughts here? Browns get the win, and we'll break down some of the specifics.
First of all, I can't remember how strongly I made this point beforehand, but like this is one of the most obvious Tomlin letdown performances of all time. It's like, of course, he's going to find a way of losing this game to Cleveland now that you've done the hard work and won the games that you weren't necessarily expected to win. Like this is the most obvious letdown spot for a Tomlin season of all time, and it's exactly the way it ends up panning out. The other thing that I think was interesting about the game is that everyone almost universally came out of it with the same opinion. And I think the best tweet I saw to sum it up came from our friend Andrew Hawkins, former Brown, wide receiver, entrepreneur, general, good guy. Myles Garrett has 0 sacks, but absolutely had the biggest effect on the game because the Steelers decided that stopping him from getting the sack record was more important than playing offense. And I think most people came away with that exact opinion, that this somehow became a game where Pittsburgh was less concerned about winning the football game and more concerned about just not have Myles Garrett break the sack record against them. And again, that was something we brought up in the preview show. Like, how motivated is this team of all teams? Remember how much Pittsburgh hates Myles Garrett for, arguably good reasons, but how motivated were they going to be just by not having him break it against them? And I think the answer to that was pretty damn motivated, like more motivated than they were to just win the game and seal a playoff spot.
Look, I've seen both sides of that discussion, and
but one of the sides is championed by Warren Sharp, so it's a worse argument.
What was he saying?
He was arguing that, like, oh, you think it would have been better if they just let Myles Garrett have 5 sacks? That gives them a better chance of winning the football game?
I don't care what Warren says. It's more so like, I get that they always play Garrett that way. They chip him, they send extra blockers, they throw the ball quickly for the most part. But it almost felt like the number of times Rodgers was hitting a behind the line check down. That was still negative yards, right? It was like, this is going to go for -4, but it's better than getting sacked. And it was like, he got sacked by Alex Wright, and he was almost like, well, let me make sure that's not like, let me maneuver the pocket to avoid Garrett and move into Alex Wright, which got them out of field goal range. Yeah. That's what it was. It wasn't so much a game plan thing, because the game plan looked similar to all other game plans for the Steelers. Like, block Myles Garrett. Of course, that's good football.
That's
I'm talking about Rodgers' eyes and his pocket movement and his feel. And when the checkdowns came, it was rushed. Everything was rushed. And look, DK Metcalf wasn't out there. And we know that this offense has been better when DK Metcalf, early in the season, they were dinking and dunking to Metcalf. It's been so much better when he's on the outside, winning when they're throwing it up to him one-on-one. And they don't have that guy, right? They don't trust Valdez-Scantling or Adam Thielen. They don't trust those guys as much. And you can't just build the whole offense out of Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, your 2 backs. You can't. So I get all that. But it felt like they were as worried about the sack record as anything else. But look, they're depleted, but it just, something felt off there.
That's why the Warren Sharp side of it is a bad faith argument that I don't believe he's making in good faith. Warren Sharp tweets a lot of things that are designed to create engagement more than they are to have an honest discussion. And, anyone that listens to this show and the shouty show stuff knows that's not our favorite form of engagement. So, but this is why. It's because it's not the alternative to what they did was not, don't bother blocking Myles Garrett, right? Like we're not saying that. We're not saying, just leave him one-on-one against bad offensive tackles and let him cook. That's not what we're suggesting. What we're suggesting is that every single person that came to this conclusion looked at this game plan and said, there's something not right about the way they're playing. Like, there's some things here that even with the accepted baseline of giving Myles Garrett a ton of extra attention because he's Myles Garrett, there's stuff they're doing that doesn't feel like they're focusing on the really important parts of this, which is winning the football game. It feels like they're focusing on, if Myles Garrett gets within, an arm's radius of the quarterback, take whatever negative play is available to you. Just don't take the sack. Don't let him get the sack record. That's what fell off about it.
Now, as far as what ended up happening in the game, the Steelers when we mentioned Tomlin and as the head coach getting all of the credit and all of the blame and the Tomlin games, it's just so fascinating. What was the stat that I sent you? I got to find the stat.
He's like 0-8 or something against. No, he's one win and 7 losses or something. Have you got it?
Yes. So the Steelers are 0-4-1 in their past 5 games versus teams entering the game 8 games below 500 or worse. So when we talk about Tomlin week after week, and it's like you win this game you're not supposed to, you lose this game you're not supposed to. The no matter in the fact that it's QB proof, it is every single team is calibrated to Tomlin's trends every single year. It's just a fascinating world. It's like, oh, you
I
have Aaron
need
Rodgers, doesn't matter. You're still going to lose to the three win Browns in late in the season.
I need some
So
kind of infographic where somebody has compiled all of the freaky stats that Tomlin has, like all of the trends that he has in his career, like this. He's got a ridiculously terrible record against teams that are 8 games below 500 late in the season. He always wins or always loses the division game on a Thursday night randomly. Like I've never encountered a head coach who has like half a dozen completely separate but irrefutable trends of games that he wins or loses. It's madness. And then all of that somehow spits out to being a 9-win team at the end of the season every year.
So this is the official tweets from Doug Clawson, who says the Steelers are winless, 0-4-1, in their past 5 games versus teams entering 8+ games below 500, tying the longest such streak in NFL history. This goes back to 2020. They lost to the 2-10-1 Bengals. In 21, they tied the 0-8 Lions. In 23, they lost to the 2-10 Cardinals. In 2023, they lost to the 2-10 Bailey Zappi-led Patriots. And then yesterday, lost to the 3-12 Browns. This was, and so what's the roller coaster ride looked like? A month ago, people were calling for Tomlin's job, and Rodgers was playing like this is the roller coaster, right? Calling for his job. They had just lost to the Bears. They got smoked by the Bills 26-7. Aaron Rodgers looks awful, and he's injured and missing a little time, and he looks old, and he's terrible. And the Ravens are back in the mix. And then they beat the Ravens. Rodgers plays his best game in 4 years. Then they beat the Dolphins. Then they beat the Lions. And he's back. Tomlin's back. He's got his record. They're not going to have a losing season again. And then they lose at Cleveland because they haven't won. A non-Big Ben starting quarterback for the Steelers hasn't won in Cleveland since Tommy Maddox in 2003. Another trend.
Yeah, Kenny that one Pickett. Is a bit. I don't like that one.
He hasn't been,
like, but most of those games were Big Ben, who was good.
I get it. But I'm just saying, like, they lose in Cleveland, whether it's last year in the snow or yesterday. It's just a fascinating world that they always seem to do this, right? We went all the way back to the Bengals Thursday night game. They were 4-1 against the Bengals team that was reeling and had Joe Flacco right off the plane and lost to him on a Thursday night because they always lose Thursday night games.
Yeah, but that's what's amazing. It's different to other coaches or quarterbacks or whatever, where it's just a roller coaster ride, like a randomizer, like Carolina or Atlanta this year, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense. It's an incredibly broad range of outcomes, and I've no idea which way it's going to go, and it's going to lurch from one to the next week to week. What's amazing about the Tomlin thing is how predictable it is with certain ordained statistical trends that he has in his NFL career. It's not that it's just a roller coaster up here, down here. It's that like you can plot it out before it happens. Like this is the game that he loses. He's 0-4-1 in these games, or he's 0-8 in these games, or whatever it is. Like it's nuts.
So primetime home game against the Ravens. We'll have to get all the data leading up to that game, but
this has got to be a job for Pony, right? We got to get him on this. Plot out the 6 different trend lines that Tomlin has.
We should get Pony on the show this week to break it down for us. Maybe on Wednesday. We'll get a little Steelers breakdown. The Steelers had it's just a fascinating world. They had 5 drives in the fourth quarter where they could either take with the division on the line.
Yeah.
Right? They could win the division, rest old man Rodgers. They could rest everybody next week. 5 drives in the fourth quarter where they could either take the lead or tie the game. They missed a field goal, which occurred after Rodgers took a sack, knocked them back to the 36-yard line. So they missed a field goal. They go 4 and out with a punt. 3 and out with a punt, 4 and out on downs in their own territory, which they said, hey, we'll surrender the field goal, and then down 7, got within range, and then go 4 and out, 4 incompletions, and done. So they ran 32 plays in the fourth quarter. 32 plays, either down 4 or down 7, and averaged under 4 yards per play, 0 points on the board.
But then that was the thing. Even with that, okay, finally, this is literally the last chance saloon. That final drive, it was like they're moving the ball at will as soon as until they get down into the shadow of the goal line and then couldn't get in. But it was like that entire drive, they were just pitch and catch, balls moving down immediately into range, and then couldn't get it into the line. And then the last play was just the one-on-one ISO on the outside to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. By the way, I thought they were kind of lucky not to get flag. If a flag had come out at the end of that, I would not have been shocked at all based off how physical that coverage was on that play.
I think Rodgers said that in the postgame, like, I thought it was interference, at least on one of them, probably that one. I thought the Browns, because the Steelers had no timeouts left, I thought they made an interesting decision. They went for it on 4th and 10 in their own territory with all 3 timeouts, essentially saying we're either going to convert and keep the ball or we're going to yield a field goal and go from down 4 to down 7. I think that's okay. That's the right move, to take a shot to keep the ball and then say, hey, we'll be down 7. Either way, we need a touchdown. Didn't work out for them. But I thought because the Steelers had no timeouts, I thought the Browns played a little bit softer. That's part of the reason why they moved the ball and then cracked down in the red zone. Either way, Browns defense is fantastic. The fact that teams have to give so much attention to Myles Garrett and are so afraid of him is a factor, is a big part in their favor. And then when you don't have DK Metcalf on the other side, you could play tighter coverage, right? Tyson Campbell had a really nice game. You're gonna play, physical press man coverage, and the Steelers had no answers for what the Browns were doing.
Yeah. True. I think they also lost Darnell Washington in this game with a broken arm. I didn't see what injured him, though. But based off what happened to him last week, where a guy ran into him and he bounced that dude like he was a freight train and there was a car trying to cross the tracks, I kind of curious what it was, or what possible thing happened to Darnell Washington that was able to fracture a bone in this man. But that's a blow for Pittsburgh, even if they make the playoffs. It's a blow next week, and then it's a blow for them if they go into a playoff game. Darnell Washington, in addition to just being a comedy human, is like a pretty important part of that offense.
No, he absolutely is. Other side, I thought Shedeur Sanders was playing a really good game until his second interception was awful. But really, he made two. He had 2 awful decisions in this one. Anyway, I thought Shedeur was playing pretty well. Like, he was finding the open man. Like, he was picking apart the Steelers defense like veterans do. We always talk about how a lot of veterans have just solved Tomlin's defense because they've seen the same thing for the last decade. And Shedeur was picking him apart. The only touchdown in the game was to Harold Fannin. Great adjustment by Fannin, who continues an outstanding season, but he leaves with a groin injury. That was the only touchdown in the game.
Got injured on the play, adjusting.
Got injured on the play, re-injured on the play because he was dealing with it. And then that was it as far as the scoring goes. And then Shedeur was playing well. He had 1 interception where the pass got tipped. That was tough, but he threw one that should have been a pick 6 to Nick Herbig in the flat, late to the flat. It looked like, remember earlier in the year, Cam Ward had one and Michael Penix Jr. had one, like super late to the flat, easy pick 6. That should have been a pick 6. That was bad.
He's in this frustrating world right now where the analysis is the one that always sounds stupid, which is, other than the terrible plays, he played very well. Like, other than the 2
awful plays,
really bad. Yeah. And the third one, like the batted pass interception, I need to see like the super slow-mo replays again, but it's like he got hit from behind, and then he threw the ball, which then beamed into a defender's helmet and bounced up, and they got intercepted that way. I'm not 100% sure that the hit sent the ball into the guy's helmet. I think it might have been a little bit like one of those ones he had last time where there's a guy in front of him and he's doing nothing to get it around him. He's just trying to throw it through the edge rusher effectively. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the hit sent it in that direction.
I'm watching it right now. The pressure came in probably under 2 seconds and
I know that
in the middle of the
but if you look at there's a replay from behind him that's basically looking at the guy he's throwing at. He's always thrown the ball through that guy, and I'm not even 100% certain that the hit deflects it in that
No.
direction before it happens.
No, I don't think. I think that was unlucky. I think that was unlucky from what
I
I'm
mean, it's
seeing.
unlucky anyway, but it's one of those ones where, again, like he's shown a couple of times now that he's not that keen on the stuff Bryce Young is doing really well right now, adjusting arm angles, getting around guys that are right in his face. Like Shadur's not doing that. If there's a dude in his face, it's at risk of hitting that guy.
The second interception, I don't understand.
I don't even know what he's doing on that play. It's bizarre.
I mean,
it's like it's fourth down. And he's just arm punting, but it's not.
It's the fourth quarter. It's 2nd and 5. It's one of the few times, by the way, like his pocket movement I've been pretty impressed with. Like sometimes he goes backwards, but he's getting away with it. He's looked quicker.
Yeah.
And pocket movement has been pretty solid. On this one, he does the let's retreat about 10 yards. I mean, it looked like a Madden play. Like, let's retreat 10 yards. And he threw, I cannot believe how soft he threw this ball.
It's bizarre.
I could see
like
him
I said,
seeing the receiver being open, but like, I cannot believe he threw a punt like this. This was a 4.4 hang time punt. I mean, this was insane.
Yes. It genuinely looked like a sort of fourth down arm punt play, but it wasn't. It was like 2nd and 5. I've seen somebody out there, and it wasn't Josina Anderson, say that like this was Jerry Jeudy's fault because he basically just stands there while somebody else breaks on the ball and intercepts it. And I'm like, I have literally just gone to her timeline.
Catch. He was going like this. I got it.
I've literally just gone to her timeline to see if she was also making that argument. But like, that's not on Jerry Jeudy at all. Jerry Judy's basically frozen flat-footed because the ball ends up being like half a mile up in the air, lofted the way it is.
As soon as you thought the ball was going to come down, it still wasn't coming down yet. It was wild. And it was in the fourth quarter and it could have been disastrous. But I'm with you. Like, other than 2 really bad plays, I thought Shedeur played pretty well. So take that for what it's worth. So Browns get the win, spoil the Steelers season, at least for a week. And it sets up Steelers-Ravens Sunday Night Football.
I've just found that replay again, by the way. I am now willing to accept that the hit definitely sent it right into whoever that is.
Thank you. I'm glad you caught up there, which is good.
It does need to be slowed down to see it, though. It does look like he's throwing the ball right at that guy anyway. But no, he's definitely blasted in the back before that happens.
So let me talk to Pony. Maybe we try to get him on the Wednesday show. I need the Steelers breakdown. I need the official prediction for the most.
I just need to see. I want to see all of his trends together in one spot, like because it keeps coming up. The Steelers guys must know what they all are. I need them all put down somewhere together. Like, stop telling me them piecemeal, bit by bit. Oh, by the way, Tomlin always wins this game. I need to see. Give me the 5 different ways that Tomlin wins or loses games every time.
I can't imagine that they've swept the Ravens all that often. So that's probably working against him. What could happen, though, is they get the win, though, and then lose to the Texans like 28-3 or something like that in the first round, just to keep that. That's a trend that needs to continue as well. So there's conflicting trends.
I mean, that's kind of the perfect way for this Tomlin season to end. It's kind of what we've been suggesting for, all the way along, is that there's definitely a world where they somehow make the playoffs. Tomlin keeps his winning record or streak alive, and they get bounced in the playoffs immediately and look terrible doing it. And that's the perfect world for all of these people that are like, it's time to move on from Tomlin. Like, these guy's a fraud. He's a joke. Like, we got to move on. And like, yeah, but like, it's perfect because the first part of that is quite difficult to do, right? Get to the playoffs, have a winning record every year. Most teams don't do that. And then there's the other part of it, which is have a purpose when you're there. Like, there's no point just being in the playoffs if you're immediately going to get your ass kicked and get bounced out of it. Like, and that's the thing people have a problem with.
All right, man. Anything else on this one?
I thought Dylan Sampson, his numbers are terrible, but I thought showed some flashes where the ball got in his hands and he actually made some people miss and looked pretty useful.
Every big run did get negated by a hold. So whatever you want to say on that.
Like Rex Ryan was taking shots at the Jets or at the Jets, taking shots at the Browns because like all of their leaders and everything are rookies. And he was like, that's why they suck. And there's a kernel of truth to that. But I think it's also like these are reasons for optimism for the future for this Browns team, which the roster had sort of run its way into trouble. I mean, one way of digging yourself out of that trouble is to suddenly stumble upon 5 rookies that all look pretty useful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this should be I think there's reasons for optimism with the Browns roster, given the
Assuming,
turnover that they.
assuming Judkins comes back healthy from a pretty nasty injury.
Right. All right, man, quick break to talk about our friends over at Root Insurance. Root Insurance believes that good drivers deserve better rates, so they've created a new kind of car insurance that rewards good drivers in an easy-to-use app. Traditional car insurance companies focus on demographics like age, zip code, occupation, and credit score to price your coverage, but when Root offers a rate, your behavior behind the wheel gets more weight than any other single factor. They didn't use occupation or education level to negatively affect your rate. While you drive, Root gathers and analyzes data from your smartphone sensors, and after a few weeks, you'll get a car insurance quote based primarily on your driving. Save up to 44% off your initial Root quote after you take the test drive. If you need a tow truck, jump start, or you lock your keys in the car, Root will cover the help you need to get back on the road when you opt into roadside assistance. The Root app makes it easy to edit your coverage, update your policy, or file a claim in just 3 minutes. You can get started today at Root.com. All right, let's go. New Orleans Saints, another win, their fourth straight win. This time over the Tennessee Titans, 34-26. Saints move to 6-10. Titans fall to 3-13. Titans were up early, but Tyler Shuck magic once again here, Sam. A couple big touchdowns down the stretch. Audric Estime with a big touchdown in this game for the Saints. And I'll say this, man, an exciting back and forth game between the two rookie quarterbacks, Tyler Shuck and Cam Ward.
It really was. This was a really fun game. And really all the way through it. Like, Ward to DK in particular was the connection that had been sort of taken over in this game. Ward to DK has taken over from Ward to Ayamainer, which was the only thing that was working earlier in the season for Tennessee. Now Ward to DK is making a bunch of plays. So the Titans were out to the lead. They were playing some pretty good football. And then Tyler Shuck started getting it done late in the game and really dragged them back. And yeah, it was a fun back and forth. This was a weird. They kept bringing this up during the game that DK has now set the all-time single-season all-purpose yardage record, which was kind of blew my mind a little bit for a couple of reasons. Number one, because it didn't feel like he's had that kind of impact in this rookie season, albeit impressive. Number two, did you know who held this record?
I saw the list yesterday, but it's because all-purpose yards is 90% special teams. I ignored it. So who was it?
Tim Brown. So this is a record that stood since 1987, 86, something like that. Tim Brown from the Raiders had held this record. Yeah, it's a weird one because it makes you realize like what a weird collection of unique sort of deployment this requires in order to hold this record. You basically need to be a useful player on offense who is a returner on like both, who returns punts and kicks, which is not apparently that common. And consequently, Tim Brown has been able to hold this record for like 40 years until DK breaks it this year.
Well, I appreciate you bringing this stat to the table. In my bottom three least favorite stats of all time, all-purpose yards, absolutely in the bottom three. There's a baseball stat called games finished, which was just are you the last pitcher in the game? Yeah, are you the last pitcher in the game? Like this stat somehow landed on the back of baseball cards. Games finished, which just means you were the last pitcher in the game. Doesn't matter if you pitched well, pitched no context whatsoever. Were you the last pitcher in the game? All-purpose yards is slightly above games finished, I would say. So I don't mean to.
I don't pay attention to it in the NFL, but I was always with Christian McCaffrey, like his college superpower. He was always crushing the all-purpose yardage number, and I liked that because I liked Christian McCaffrey. And when everyone else was focusing on Leonard Fournette, I was using all-purpose yardage as part of a tool to construct the argument that Christian McCaffrey was better.
It's insane though, because you're just taking kick return yards and punt return yards and receiving and rushing yards and adding them up.
And as is the case with
all kick and punt returner,
and as is the case with all statistical arguments, I'm using the number that goes in my favor to construct a bad faith argument that my guy is better than your guy. That's how this works. People are going to be doing that in a week with the MVP case. I'm just doing it with this.
So obviously, I mean, in a year where the kick return's back and DK has had a couple big returns, I mean, it's good for him. And he's absolutely been an offensive weapon. So I don't mean to poo-poo that at all. But he has been a vertical threat in this offense. Cam Ward has made some awesome throws in this game, even like a 4th and 10 check down to keep the play alive, the 34-yarder to Mason Kinsey on the run. I mean, there's just some awesome high-end flash plays from Cam Ward. And then the Tyler Shuck fourth quarter magic. Shuck finished 22 of 27 for 333 and 2 touchdowns in this one, by the way. The comeback happened in a couple ways for the Saints. First off, Chase Young looking like generational Chase Young, where it's called a strip sack against Cam Ward, but he just took the ball from Cam Ward and then ran it in for a touchdown. Amazing. Yeah. And then it just felt like credit Kellen Moore in this offense, because they dialed up this kind of rub route wheel to Chris Olave again for a touchdown. That got them back in. Another 60-yarder to Olave set up the touchdown where they took the lead. It was really nice. If you go check out Shuck's throw to Kevin Austin, the go-ahead touchdown, how early, because it was Kevin Austin Jr., man. 4 catches for 52. Check out how early Tyler Shuck throws that ball. The anticipation on the out route in the end zone. That's why so many film people have loved Tyler Shuck and what he's doing. And he's been outstanding these last few weeks.
Yes, yeah. Credit to Carl Granderson for getting the pressure. He got the interior pressure that forced Cam Ward back into the path of Chase Young, who then just like stole the football from him and took off running for 50 yards in the end zone, holding the ball like full loaf of bread mode, right? One hand out here, just like waving it around like this. And it's like for 50 yards, he's being chased down by like skill position players, wide receivers and running backs. You're like, dude, if they catch up to you, they will force a fumble the way you're carrying that football. I spent the entire 50 yards of that run back being terrified that he was about to fumble the ball through the back of the end zone because of it. But amazing play overall.
When did that? So that came, it was 13-3 at the time. That got the Saints back to 13-10. It was 20-10. Shuck hit the wheel route to Olave, and then Saints had just a really good second half in the fourth quarter in particular. That throw to Austin for the touchdown was outstanding. And then it was our guy, Audric Estime, who was already having a decent game, breaking tackles. He was just tough to tackle yesterday, but breaks away for a 32-yarder to put the Saints up 8, and that was all she wrote.
That touchdown run was the Audric Estime that I expected to see more of based off his college tape. Like that was a brick wall in front of him, nowhere to go, bounces it outside, and then just a couple of moves, some power, like a quick kind of cut before a safety comes to drill him just to avoid the sort of full contact like force. Like a big, powerful guy who didn't necessarily always rely on the big power to run over people and then burst to the end zone. Like really nice play. They might sort of stumble into something with Estime. Like I still wouldn't rule out the idea that just because he's already failed somewhere, he's already like a busted player. He has a complementary sort of power back to them.
Absolutely. He had the remember in college too, he had a really nice leap over
hurdle the guy. Like
he did the same thing yesterday on one of his runs. I mean, he looked pretty good. I see you, Walt, that he's slow, but he's thick and tough to tackle.
I also don't think he's that slow. I think he has burst. He just doesn't run a 40 fast.
Right. He's not like twitchy, but dudes were bouncing off him yesterday. And look, I know it's the Titans, but impressive yesterday. Tyler Shuck, I mean, we'll talk more about him in the offseason and team building season and everything, but 4 straight wins for the Saints. Some big plays. They had a lot of injuries yesterday, overcame them. Again, Kevin Austin for the game-winning touchdown. Olave looked great in this game again, and it looks like the Saints have something to build upon here. So a lot of optimism with the Saints, not only with Shuck, but what Brandon Staley's doing with that defense. Things coming together, I think, for the Saints these last few weeks.
And, of course, Charlie Smith, good from 56 and 57 yards in field goals. It's all we need. Another game ball, admittedly, because Kellen Moore gives out 15 of them every week. But still, back-to-back game balls, if not 3 in a row for Charlie.
Did you send congrats on the game ball?
I didn't. You know what? I didn't. I decided I've been jilted too many times. I'm not sending another text, at least not this week.
One of these days. Maybe he'll get back to you someday. He missed another one, too, at an undisclosed distance, but doesn't matter.
Yeah. Good from 56 and 57. That's what goes on the graphic.
Right now, the Titans would, if the draft was today, the Titans would have the number 4 pick at 3-13. They're one of 4 teams at 3-13: Giants, Jets, Titans, and Cardinals. The Saints are down at the 8 pick, tied at 6-10 with the Chiefs and the Bengals. So draft implications, as we said. Optimistic about both rookies, though, coming out of that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, they both played well. Cam Ward had the magic play that he hasn't actually had that much of this season, and the stupid replay took it away from him because apparently his knee touched the ground during the course of throwing the ball horizontally to a check down guy in the flat instead of being sacked. That sack, by the way. So it was like a full Mahomesian play.
Was that the 4th and 10 play?
It was like a full It was like a full Mahomesian play where he steps through the first pressure, gets out of a guy, then steps through the second one, gets out of that contact, but he's going down. So as he's falling to the ground, he goes full horizontal, looks to his left, like it's not even in the direction that he's facing. Full horizontal, falling over, like looks to his left last second and fires a ball out to Tajee Spears, I think it was, who then turns it into something positive. And then replay looks at it and is like, nah, on the way down, his knee touched the ground. We're going to take that away and we're going to call it a sack. That change gave Cameron Jordan $600,000 in bonus money.
Wow, I do like those stories at this time of year. The $500,000 sack, the $1 million sack,
but how wild is that? That like instant replay went and found Cam Jordan $600K.
That's what it's all about. Love it for him, not the play,
right? Not for the fact that it takes away a spectacular Cam Ward play. Alontae Taylor, I think, had 4 pass breakups in this game as well. Like another guy presumably got a game ball, one of the 15 Kellen Moore gives out.
Yeah, he was making a lot of plays in this one. Lots of like the way the Saints defense has played down the stretch here as well. So they're going to be a fun team to discuss this offseason and what should have been a full rebuild. And I think, finishing strong here. Anything else on that one? Let's go Seattle Seahawks 27. Carolina Panthers 10. Seahawks get the win, move to 13-3. That sets up next Saturday night. Seahawks and 49ers are going to play. Wild that the 49ers are in this position, playing for the number 1 seed in the NFC West title. That'll be Saturday night. Saturday afternoon, because of this loss, the Carolina Panthers at 8-8, playing the Bucs, almost certainly winning the NFC South. It was 3-3. At the half. Both defenses playing well, a couple turnovers. Carolina forced to give them, their Carolina's first drive was 4 plays for 9 yards, field goal drive. But Seahawks defense was just too much for Carolina, who put together 1 decent drive on the entire afternoon.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like both defenses, I think, were playing really well in this game.
Rain game too, by the way, a factor.
Yeah. Eventually, Carolina's defense sort of ran out of the ability to stop that. Sam Darnold, the Seahawks offense, made enough plays. One of them, by the way, was this crazy sequence where Mike Jackson made a couple of really nice plays in this game, the cornerback for Carolina. He has a really nice pass breakup. Then he maintains position on this like out and up route by JSN into the end zone, gets a really nice end zone interception. Then it looks like they're going to take it away from him on replay. It's like, that second foot looks like the toe is just on the line. They look at it and they're like, no, because I think it was because his knee on the other leg landed just before the toe came down. So it was irrelevant anyway, because 1 knee equals 2 feet in the Byzantine world of NFL rules. So they give him the interception. What could have been a Seattle touchdown and ends up being a turnover. Then Seattle gets a forced fumble the very next play. So Carolina takes over, touchback line at the 20. Immediately, DeMarcus Lawrence peanut punches the ball out. Seattle gets the ball right back, and then they get a touchdown off that sequence anyway. So it ends up being 10-3 Seattle on what looked like it was going to be 10-3 Seattle. Only Mike Jackson makes the play to stop it being 10-3 Seattle, albeit just for a couple of minutes.
That was pretty much the game. I mean, that was absolutely the biggest sequence in the game that you just laid out there, because it was 3-3. It was the second half. Neither team like Bryce Young's final stat line is pretty bad, but there was a point where it even looked worse, I think. I don't know if it can, but Bryce Young finished 14 of 24 for just 54 yards, 2.3 yards per attempt and an interception. But I mean, at one point he had like 18 yards at the half or whatever. So the fact that the Panthers defense kept making those stops, the Mike Jackson interception, it was a great pick by him. And then DeMarcus Lawrence, man, again, just making huge plays for the Seahawks. So that put them up. Zach Charbonnet ran extremely well for the Seahawks, maybe the player of the game, running through contact, had a 29-yarder in there that helped flip the field, 2 touchdowns, 110 yards on 18 carries. Charbonnet was outstanding in this game where Seattle's offense was very inconsistent. Darnold made a few big plays and throws in the second half, but I thought Charbonnet really got them going and finished at the in the red zone really well. And then after that, Seattle was up 10-3. That sequence that you mentioned, Julian Love with a really nice interception, kind of baiting Bryce Young. And that was it, man. Like Seattle gets up 17-3. Bryce comes back with a nice 10-yard scramble to get within a score. But at that point, it was just too much. Seattle ran away with it with the last couple scores.
Yeah, the Seattle run game being good in this game, I think, is I mean, it's an optimistic thing for them going forward and hoping to make noise in the playoffs, because their run game on offense being as ineffective as it generally is this season is kind of curious when it's like Kenneth Walker, I think, is a really good running back and dynamic and explosive, and Charbonnet is capable of games like this where he's a powerful runner and able to make big plays as well. It's like, it feels like the run game should be better just based off the running backs that they have, and yet often isn't.
No, I agree. I think, Walker's interesting because he's like, sometimes he'll just bounce it out and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Charbonnet is more in between the tackles, power runner, and sometimes it's tough to just run through contact all the time. In this game, it worked. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, I feel like their run game has potential. And if you look at this high level in a game where Darnold took a few sacks, fumbled in the pocket, throws the red zone interception, not the cleanest game from Sam Darnold. If they didn't have the run game, they were going to be in trouble, and that would have been, reliant too much on their defense. But Seattle's defense so dominant, holding the Panthers to 40 passing yards. I know it was a weather game, but they just could not get anything going through the air. And Seattle's defense set them up, kept them in it, and that's why they ran away with it at the end, and they're playing for the number 1 seed next week against a red-hot 49ers team. Mm-hmm. So we have Seahawks-Niners. I need to look up the numbers because we're going to talk about Purdy and how well he played, but I think Purdy against Mike McDonald defenses, that's the matchup there. This is going to be a great matchup. It's Saturday night, the number 1 seed on the line. So we talked about Darnold playing these big late season games. You're either the 1 or the 5. Well, we thought it was going to be a couple weeks ago against the Rams. It's actually going to be this Saturday night. He's doing it again. You're either going to be the 1 or presumably the 5, maybe the 6. I don't know how the tiebreaker works between Seattle and the Rams, but whole thing's on the line again for Sam Darnold in the Seahawks. And then the Panthers, had they pulled the upset here, would have won the division with the Bucs loss, but not to happen. It didn't happen. And so they're going to play Saturday afternoon against the Bucs, winning in when it comes to the NFC South.
It's also crazy that, I mean, just that division, by the end of tonight, we could have 3 teams in that division with 12 wins with a week left to go. Admittedly,
yeah.
2 of them are playing each other in that, but like, that's a ridiculous output.
And I believe Darnold's now one of only like 4 or 5 quarterbacks to win 13 games in back-to-back seasons now. First player to do it with 2 different teams, but it's all like Brady and Peyton and all the good QBs.
Yeah.
So
I forget it's Brady, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and now Sam Darnold, I think, is the 5.
As expected.
just 5 Hall of Famers.
Anything else on this one?
No.
All right. Next one will be quick. Cincinnati Bengals 37, Arizona Cardinals 14. Bengals move to 6-10. Cardinals fall to 3-13. Dominant win here for the Bengals. Joe Burrow finishes 24 of 31 for 305 and 2 touchdowns. Chase Brown, Mr. Second Half, 2 touchdowns in the second half once again, 22 for 101 on the ground. Bengals offense was cooking. Cardinals just look cooked.
Yeah. We got like half the shootout. The Cardinals apparently didn't get the memo that this was supposed to be nothing but offense and all offense all the time. The Bengals, they did their part. And then Arizona, other than a couple of plays here or there, really didn't bring that much to the table at all.
They tried with the Michael Wilson toe tap up the sideline where the Bengals were just flailing.
Well, that was the thing. It's not like Cincinnati's defense showed up and was like, "Nah, we're just going to shut you down this day. Like, for this is the game that we're going to play good football for a change." It's like their defense was still an embarrassment, and the Cardinals just didn't bring any offense to the table. That Michael Wilson play down the sideline, you're like, it looks like he stepped out like 3 separate times, and instead, like Geno Stone has an absolute embarrassment of a tackle attempt where he just like tucks his shoulder face towards the ground and just like throws himself in the vague direction of Michael Wilson, bounces off, doesn't even affect him really. The pursuit angle is terrible as well. You're like, that the Bengals defense is still a joke, and you're not putting up points or yardage against them. That's not great.
Arizona's defense has been awful in recent weeks too. You see the Jamar Chase bubble screen touchdown, wide open on a slant on another touchdown, Chase Brown in the second half. Bengals, they played well, spreading the ball around, and just Arizona. I don't know if this is job defining for Jonathan Gannon, but the second half of the season for Arizona
definitely damaging.
has not been good. Yeah, it's been pretty bad on that side.
First career sack for Shamar Stewart, the Bengals first round draft pick. So that's something. Also, the Bengals started what I believe should be instituted now as a permanent tradition, which is on his birthday, the Bengals decided to line up 330 plus pound offensive lineman utility guy, Cody Ford, lined him up at right wide receiver, like not even the sort of tackle eligible play where the guy just sneaks out, from basically a tight end / tackle alignment. They lined him up at wide receiver and threw him ran a hitch. Like they ran a simple wide receiver hitch and threw him the ball and then let him turn upfield and run over a cornerback desperately trying to tackle him. I think every offensive lineman should get a target on their birthday.
I like it. Forget National Tight Ends Day. It's just O-line birthday day.
And I might extend that to the defensive line as well. I think if it's your birthday and you're a lineman, you get a target in the game.
Teams are more fun when they're eliminated from the playoffs and they do stuff like, "Hey, Cody Ford, you're T. Higgins on this play. You're Jamar Chase. We're running a little hitch to you. Make do." That was the best play of Cody Ford's career. The other story here, Trey McBride set the all-time tight end receptions record for a season. So,
yeah,
good for Trey McBride here.
It looked for Ben Stockwell was texting me. It was like, "I'm kind of sad that it didn't happen on that ridiculous play where it was like batted up and he goes and then like launches himself into the pile to stop it from being intercepted." But it didn't happen a couple of catches later than that.
When you mentioned Ben and tight ends, I thought you were going to say something about like an 8-yard out, like the Jason Witten play that you guys.
No, I did bring that to his attention that they showed the top, whatever it was, 10-5 tight end reception leaderboard all time single season, and Jason Witten is like 5 or something. It was like 110, I think was his number. So I texted Ben. I was like, "There you go. There's your guy. 110 5-yard outs for Jason Witten back in whatever that was, 08."
Mohall's asking if we can get Stockwell on the podcast. I mean, there's some sort of archive where he's been on the show 8, 10, 12 years ago. I mean, he's been on the show 2 or 3 times historically, I would guess.
No way you could agree to do that.
First off, there's no way you could find the archive anywhere. Secondly, agreed. I don't know if he would agree. It would be like us.
Would not agree. There's no way.
I call him our Ernie Adams, right? He's like he's the smartest football guy that no one knows about. And I don't know if he would do it. I would have him on the show. I just don't know if he would do it.
Yeah, I doubt very much.
It would be like it was like when Edelman got Ernie Adams to speak on a podcast.
That being said, he did appear in an athletic article recently on PFF. So he's front facing now. He's media.
He is.
I wonder, do you think he would have to go through, PFF PR people, or does Ben have the autonomy to just say, "You know what? I want to talk to these guys. I'm going to go do my podcast. There's nothing you can do about it."
I think you could. I mean, some of the other people who are speaking in public there, I believe Ben would be okay.
I mean, there's also a ask for forgiveness, not for permission world out there where you just do it and see if they complain. But I'd be curious if the policy would be, you suppose you should be going through internal PR.
It's not exactly the same, but I heard Todd McShay recently on his show explaining why Mel Kiper is not on his show, and it's ESPN has said absolutely no way is Mel allowed to do Todd McShay's show.
Oh, ESPN is like militant about that stuff.
Yeah. But it's just Mel. Like, he's had Herb Street on there. He's had other ESPN people, and McShay was theorizing. He's like, they don't want anyone to see the McShay Kuiper magic again because it's not available on ESPN. So they don't want that to be recreated. So Mel, who's still his buddy, is like, sorry, can't do it. Can't do it.
They had magic, did they?
I mean, people liked it. Yeah.
Okay.
People liked the magic. Like you and I. Like, if we broke up, people would yearn for us to be back together again. And if, anyway. Are we done with this?
Yeah.
Bengals get the win. They're 6-10. I have yet to unpack. I apologize. I have yet to unpack scenarios in which the Raiders win next week to get their third win, and who would be next in line for the number 1 overall pick. But the Arizona Cardinals right now would be picking 5th at 3-13, one of 4 teams that are 3-13. I'm not sure who is next in line based off of scenarios for the number 1 overall pick. But Arizona right now with a top 5 pick, and most likely with a top 5 pick.
And need one.
Yes. They could be playing a Rams team that wants to rest starters next week, though. So that could throw a wrench in things if they accidentally win. So we'll see. All right, what's next? Got to get to my list here. Oh, we're on to the 4 o'clocks here. The Tank Bowl.
All 2 of them.
All 2 of them. The New York Giants 34, Las Vegas Raiders 10. Giants move to 3-13. Raiders fall to 2-14. The Tank Bowl disappointed as the Giants said, no way, we don't want the number 1 pick. We're dominating this game. Go get it, Raiders.
Yeah. It did feel like that was the way this game should go going into it. Not even just because it feels like the Raiders are institutionally trying to tank harder than the Giants are when, we're shutting down all of their players. But also because they suck harder than the Giants do this year. Like, the Raiders have been an absolute disaster this season. They've been arguably the most disappointing team in the entire NFL relative to certainly my expectations. I know other people thought highly of them as well. Greg Rosenthal, I think, expected some, pretty decent things from them. Nobody expected them to be a dominant force or anything, but we expected them to be competitive, to be difficult to beat, to be in and around, 500, that type of mark. And instead, they've just been terrible. They've just been an awful football team, pretty much start to finish. Whereas the Giants have been good sometimes. It's not, the record is bad. They haven't always turned it into wins, but they have,
especially with Dart.
Yeah.
Especially with Dart under center.
Exactly. They have been much more difficult to beat than the Raiders have. So I kind of expected that when these two teams face each other, the Giants are just a better football team, and that would result in a relatively comfortable win. And that's kind of how it went. I
saw the stat last night. The Giants have more wins against teams with winning records than the Patriots.
Nice.
The Giants beat the Eagles. Let me just get this really quick. So the 3-win Giants have beaten the Chargers and the Eagles. The Patriots, I believe, because the biggest Patriots wins along the way were Buffalo, Tampa Bay, and Baltimore. Tampa's under 500 now. Baltimore's exactly 500, so this could switch if Baltimore wins. But the Patriots' only win against a winning team is the Bills. So stat's true here. The stat is true.
There you go.
You mentioned last night, like, Geno Smith, coming into the season, we said Geno Smith struggles in the red zone. Like, his red zone struggles are bad. Some of the decision-making he makes in the red zone. Now he has stretched that out to make bad decisions across the entire field. But this was a red zone interception. Originally, it was 0-0. It was no score, and he throws another, just a misread in coverage and field-flipping interception.
Red zone Geno has now become the entire personality of Geno Smith. Like, he's just become the bad decision-making, disastrous turnover player that he has been in the red zone all the time. That's now his entire quarterbacking personality. It's amazing. His decline, I don't even know if decline isn't even the right word. Like, fall off, collapse has been amazing to watch. Like, okay, maybe he never hit the heights that he did the sort of first Seattle season again, and it's sort of been slow steps down from that. But, like, this guy is a different human. I mean, this guy is basically the Jets' Geno Smith, only, we're trying not to remember that guy existed because he'd been written off as a complete bust, and that's why he spent the better part of a decade in the wilderness. But, like, actually, that guy's back again. This is the disastrous, non-functional Geno Smith that we saw early in his career, and that guy has been there basically all the way through this season. Okay, look, the offensive line is a mess. Like that, you need to at least bring that up, as he's not dealing with much in the offensive line. Brock Bowers wasn't playing a lot of this season, and he's by far their number one target. Like it's not been a good situation. I think you need to at least give him the credit of saying this has been a bad situation, making matters worse. But it's not even like early in the season, he was getting a little bit unlucky in terms of every bad decision he made was resulting in a turnover. And usually you get a couple of those where you get away with them. But it's not even the number of turnover worthy type plays that he has that's been the biggest problem. It's the magnitude and the nature of them, where it's like, what are you doing? Like, better than this. This is Jets Geno. It's like that guy has come back, and it's like the Seattle years never even happened. And it's unbelievable. Like the some of the awful decisions he's making are bizarre.
Misread of coverage for the first interception. Second one, he's just very, very late over the middle. It was 27-10 game at that point, but also got banged up in this game. Kenny Pickett had to come in for a bit, and we'll see. I think his status might be, Geno, up in the air for next week against the Chiefs with the number one pick on the line. Raiders did everything they could, shutting down Max Crosby, shutting down Brock Bowers, everything they could to set up a loss here, and they did. And as soon as the Raiders crept back into it, and it was like, hey, let's make this a game. Let's score a touchdown and make this thing interesting. Get it to 20-10.
Yeah.
The ensuing kickoff, Deonte Banks takes back 95 yards. So the Raiders kickoff return team, they got the memo. They knew we're trying to play for the number one overall pick here. They're not really, but Giants ran away with it from that point on, finished 34-10. 2 touchdowns on the ground for Jackson Dart for the Giants.
Yeah, like the Raiders had one laborious, successful drive that ended in a touchdown, and it like immediately you just erased that with a kick return touchdown for Deonte Banks, who, whatever you say about Banks and his performance in the NFL so far, the dude's got wheels. So if you give him some space, you're not catching him. He's gone. And the other thing, of course, to come from this game, if the Giants had lost this game, they would have wrapped up the number one pick. They would have had all the tiebreakers so that nothing could have happened next week that would have taken them out of that number one overall pick. By winning this game, they at least put out there the possibility that they are taking themselves out of this number one pick again for the second year in a row.
So the Giants would have had it locked up. The Raiders do not have it locked up. Again, I need to go through all the scenarios. But are the Giants out of play now completely?
No, they need the Raiders to win a game.
They would need the Raiders to win, and then Giants lose next week. And
they're still in the running, but like they went from it was locked up if they lost this game to now you actually need other things to happen, including a bad team to win a game.
As of right now, Tankathon has the Raiders at 1 at 2-14, and then the 4, 3, and 13 teams, Giants at 2, Jets at 3, Titans at 4, Cardinals at 5. So draft implications still next week here.
2 more things that I would mention. Wan'Dale Robinson, number one, just a really good game again. 14 targets, 11 catches, 113 yards. He also set some crazy record where he's like the first 5'8" or shorter player to have 1,000 yards since like the 80s or the 90s or something crazy. Like, really small guy, but the first guy to top 1,000 yards in that bucket of small people.
I was running around doing some stuff around the house, watching the games on the iPad, moving around, and Harry shouted across the room. He's like, "Did the guy get the 1,000 yet? He's the first guy since 5 foot." Harry informed me of that stat. It was a good.
Just
stat.
Another 5'8" guy.
Yeah, Harry 5'8".
Yeah, Harry and Wan'Dale.
Correct. Yeah, he can relate.
And then Jackson Dart, 9 carries because. Because why not? Yeah, there's no saving him from himself. They're also still calling design runs, by the way, for quarterback. And I can't remember where it was, but somebody was like, Mike Kafka said, no, we're not going to be shying away from calling designed runs for our quarterbacks.
6 carries. He had 3 Neal, Sam. Come on. He had 3 Neal. 6 carries.
I feel like somebody should ask the follow-up. Like, why not, Mike? You know, like your quarterback has been in the medical tent half a dozen times this season with multiple diagnosed concussions. And you say you have no interest in dialing back the number of designed quarterback runs you have for him. I ask you the follow-up question, why not? The season is dead. Your quarterback is developing and has got quite an extensive concussion history already. Why not dial back the design runs?
You have all off season to recover at this point.
So what the hell? Let's just pound him into a wall.
I'm guessing that's why. So the Giants get the win, 34-10. The other 4:00 game, Philadelphia Eagles 13, Buffalo Bills 12. Eagles move to 11-5. Bills fall to 11-5. There was some predictability in this game. Eagles were hot early, get up 13-0. Bills have been a second half team. Eagles have had an offense that disappears at times. Talk about that in a minute. But 13-0 late in the fourth quarter. It was 13-0 with about 5:15 left in the fourth quarter. Bills finally score their first touchdown. And the play of the game, Jalen Carter blocks the extra point. Completely affected everything because the Bills came back, scored another touchdown to get within 1. This would have been the game winner, most likely, had they not had the extra point blocked. Instead, the Bills choose to go for 2 for the win. Josh Allen, incomplete pass to Khalil Shakir, who's open in the end zone. Eagles hold on to get the win.
Yeah, and good for them for going for that and saving everybody from overtime late in the night.
Let's start with meaningless game for the Bills. No, it's not really. I lied. It's meaningful. No. Go ahead.
Let's start with the Jalen Carter thing. Jalen Carter back in the lineup after having surgery and been out of the lineup for a while. And you saw the kind of difference that he makes. I mean, Jalen Carter, when he decides to show up and dominate, is one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. And there were multiple plays in this game. Obviously, the blocked kick is huge. Blocked extra point as well. Like, you don't see a blocked extra point that often. Blocks that changes the whole complexion of the end of the game. But also, like, multiple plays.
That's got to be one of the highest leverage extra point blocks you can have, just because it was, they would have lost. Probably.
Yeah. I mean, it changes it from you kick an extra point, you win the game, to now you got to go for 2 if you want to win this game. And that becomes a 50-50 proposition effectively. But he had a bunch of other plays in the game as well, where he just whoops the guy at the line and makes instant impact on it. Jalen Carter really makes a huge difference to that defense.
He absolutely does. You saw that throughout the game. This was another heavy rain game, so that affected things. When it was 13-0 at the half, I mean, all I tweeted out was like, because you know how you just following along, people are like, the Eagles are reminding people that they're still the team to beat. They're still this, they're still that. It's like, have you watched this team all year?
Yeah, they've stamped their authority in this game. There's no way it could go any way other than a repeat of the first half.
I said, I'm going to refrain from comments because I've seen both of these teams play. The one thing I wanted to put out there was the Eagles are now probably not going to score on 5 straight possessions in the second half, which is exactly what happened. 5 straight possessions. This is now the second time this year. Do we have the Ben Solak tweet by any chance? This is the second time this year from Ben, per ESPN research. The 2025 Eagles are the first team since the 1987 Patriots to win multiple games in a season in which they did not complete a second half pass. And Hurts is now the first quarterback in the play-by-play era. There's an era of play-by-play, by the way. That's 1978. To go 0 for 7 or worse in multiple games. I'm assuming that means in a half or in the second half. So those are just Eagles defense, man. They should more be the story. But let me just touch on it quickly. Why do the playoffs, I'll repeat this when it comes to Niners and Bears. Why does the playoffs feel more wide open than ever? For 2 reasons.
It's because you don't trust anybody.
Chiefs. Well, there's no Chiefs, right? And then the next couple teams that you would normally trust, the Bills, the Ravens, the Eagles, a couple of them are either not there or they look flawed. But I think more importantly is every team is one side. Like, you trust one side of the ball way more than the other. With the Eagles, it's the defense. Like, you have no trust in this offense for more than 4 drives a game. And it's the Eagles defense that you trust. It's the Broncos defense that you trust. It's the Texans defense. And you cannot say the same about the Rams might be the best all-around team in the playoffs, where if you stacked up where their offense ranks and where their defense ranks, they're both in the top 3. No other team has that. And the Rams are a wild card team this year because of special teams. So that's why it feels so wide open. And this game, I think, just shows what that's about. Because ironically, the Bills, I still trust their offense way more than their defense, but their offense is more flawed than it's been in recent years as well.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I think it's wide open because I don't think you trust any of the teams in it for different reasons. But nobody has that inbuilt history of, oh, we know what's going to happen in the playoffs. This team's got the talent. They're going to get it done. Like, every team has got something that you don't trust, whether it's the defense, the offense, the special teams, the quarterback. There's something there that you don't trust about that team. And that's why it just feels completely wide open. It was an interesting game because early, the Eagles defense was playing fantastically. They were delivering hard hits as well as the overall pressure and scheme and problems they were causing. Like, they were bringing the wood in this game as well. And then it felt like Allen was just trying to find something. It's like he just starts taking shots. Like, the spark of life that the Bills offense found in this game was like an iffy defensive pass interference on a deep shot against Quinyon Mitchell down the sideline. And then they had another shot to Shavers, who ends up going up and mossing Mitchell at the catch point in the rain. Like, amazing play by him, actually. But at this point, it's like the only offense they have right now is either Allen running around trying to make Superman plays happen, or I'm just going to heave a deep shot and hope something good happens from the back of it. Like, the Bills had been reduced to that as an offensive game plan by this Eagles defense.
And Brandon Cooks with a couple of big plays in there, including a 50-yarder. So there was a couple high leverage plays for the Bills. Yeah, I've been defending the Bills as like it's not all broken offensively as long as they don't turn it over. But like they had a 3rd and 10, and they run the little bubble screen. They run that bubble screen in key situations so much. Little swing bubble screen, and went to nowhere, which was like, what are the Bills doing? And then they pull out the hook and ladder, which was awesome on the 4th down play. But yeah, they struggled getting anything going. I think the Eagles deserve a ton of credit for that. The pass rush, Allen got sacked 5 times, but for 51 yards they lost on the sack yardage because he keeps doing
that
this.
one play. Yeah.
Yeah. He lost like 20 or 25 yards on one play because last week, he's trying to run backwards. He's trying to outrun. We saw this a little bit with Mahomes. Like, Mahomes had a lot of key plays this year, but like, he's not outrunning players as much as he was previously. Allen's not outrunning defenders as much. Part of that is, like, I thought the broadcast did a good job showing the angles that the Eagles took to take away the escape lanes on some of those plays. You can't lean on the Superman plays maybe as much from Allen because the Eagles were all over him.
Yeah, look, there's a few things. The Eagles defense is unusually good in those situations at stopping things like that. Number 2, Allen was clearly not 100%. He rolled his ankle. He was hurt. It was funny. They were like, Allen came out after the game and said, no, it wasn't a factor at all. It didn't affect me. And then apparently was seen almost immediately walking into the x-ray room. Those two things, they don't necessarily fit together. I think it's fair to say that Allen was at least somewhat dealing with an ankle injury, even if he's not wanting to put out there publicly that it was something that he didn't want to use it as an excuse after the game.
I've said for a while now, and it's not worth a random week 17 review discussion, but I am fascinated to see how the elite quarterbacks of this era age. It is a different world where the last era of elite quarterbacks, like Peyton Manning, pocket passer, he aged well until it just fell apart physically.
Right.
But Brady aged well, like as far as like their late 30s, right? Brady, Breeze, Peyton, Rodgers, most of them aged well. They were more pocket first types of players. Maybe Rodgers is the best proxy, but this is the first time where all of the elite quarterbacks depend on their legs as much as they do, from Allen to Mahomes to Lamar. How will they age? And all of them dealt with injuries this year. Allen, that's part of why we're in this wide open world right now. Allen's dealing with more injuries now than maybe he has.
But
it's an interesting world.
the last point I wanted to make about that, the scrambling stuff, is that this is the reason that people the entire offseason were needling Brandon Bean and the Bills about when are you going to go and get a number one X wide receiver? When are you going to go and get someone that can get open? Because another part of like some of it is Allen just trying to be Superman. Some of it is the Eagles defense being really good. And some of it is that none of his wide receivers are getting open, right? And they can't beat man coverage. And you've got this collection of guys who all operate over the middle and in the slot. And you don't have Dalton Kincaid, who's a really important part of that in this game. So you've got to lean on somebody else, and they don't have anyone that can get open. And again, the Eagles defense is really good. Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and these are guys that can cover. But Allen is running around, and part of the reason he's running for so long and taking such ridiculous paths and trying to make something happen is he's dancing around back there and nobody's getting open. And this is why people were and this is why Bean's assertion that look at our numbers, it's all good, we don't need an extra wide receiver, is why that was wrong then and it's wrong now, is because it's not about what you can do to some random team in week 8. It's about what happens when you go up against the best teams in the playoffs, and in these critical third down situations, they can blanket your entire wide receiver room for 5 seconds. That's the problem you're looking at here. And it reduced Josh Allen to a binary decision of either I run around for 8 seconds and try and beat 5 different defenders and find something, or I go to hell with it and just launch a shot at somebody deep down the field that's probably not going to be complete, but maybe it'll be defensive pass interference, or maybe Shavers will make like an all-time play, or Brandon Cooks almost repeated the helmet catch with the play that he had late in the game. Like, that's what the Bills' offense was reduced to because they don't have a wide receiver that can get open against man coverage.
And I think I said it on the preview show, Sam, because you made the point earlier this year that the Bills feel like they're perfectly built to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, nobody else
there to beat the Chiefs, but they could beat other teams. But I feel like the Eagles were perfectly built to beat the Bills offense as well, because you saw Jahad Campbell, you saw Zach Bond, the coverage linebackers that the Eagles have, the speed, the versatility is perfectly calibrated. And really the Bills, the only way that they move the ball was a couple low percentage downfield shots.
Yeah.
Which were pass interference or a couple great catches.
They have 11 wins this year. Obviously, they're capable of beating other teams. But the point is, the Chiefs are like uniquely vulnerable to that type of player. And so the Bills have accumulated 8 of them. Most teams are actually happy for you to attack that area of the field. That's where, if they had the option, they would funnel you into that area. You know, it's why the Miami offense didn't last particularly long at a high octane level, because eventually teams are like, oh, that's all you want to do with this offense? Perfectly happy to funnel you into that area. That's ideal for our defensive scheme. The Bills are going to face a series of opponents in the playoffs who are all happy, willing, and in fact eager for them to try and do everything they want over the middle of the field and not attack them on the perimeter or attack them vertically on the edge. And they're not capable of doing that. The Chiefs would have struggled against that because you've got Nick Bolton in coverage trying to deal with these guys. Nobody else is dealing with that problem.
I do think the Bills miss Kincaid a lot
hugely
when he's not out there. I mean, that's not going to solve the X receiver thing, but Kincaid was playing at a different level this year when he was out there. So all that said, the Bills still found a way to get down to 2 late touchdowns, and Allen just missed the throw on the 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
Khalil Shakir is open. I saw someone in the chat say that's because he was running for his life, and you and I have talked about this a lot. How much, like, football is just a fascinating game, right? You can watch any play in isolation and be like, bad throw, right? But how much did the rest of the game affect Allen? Getting sacked 5 times. Think about the Houston game. Allen made some bad throws in the Houston game because you're peaking. You know you're under pressure. You've been running for your life. You're injured. Like, how much did the rest of the game? That's where I think, like, good defenses, to have good defensive numbers, you need a little bit of luck, right? You need some missed throws. But how much of that was the fact that you put the pressure on the quarterback that whole time? You beat them up. You put them in this bind. I don't know how much that's a factor. I mean, Josh Allen probably hits that throw the majority of the time, and he just missed it. But I wonder how much the Eagles' pressure and the thought of pressure and dealing with pressure and running around, the stress of the second half lands on you just missed the throw.
Yeah.
After all of that.
I think that's kind of what it comes down to is, yeah, look, he missed it. It's a play. Yeah, I'm sure we can find a bunch of a bunch of reasons why he missed it. Whether or not it's the accumulation of pressure in the game, whether it's the slight pressure that he got in this game or this play and had to move, whether it's the rain, right? Maybe the ball came out of his hand funky, whether it's the ankle injury he's dealing with. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that probably played into it. But the bottom line is he had a play to make and he didn't make it. And that could be a damaging single play, right? That game literally came down to one play, make it or don't make it. And Josh Allen didn't make the play. And that's the bottom line here is his guy was open. Like, the hardest part of a 2-point play is scheming a guy open in the end zone when everybody's in that short area of bodies. They did that. They got the guy wide the hell open in the end zone, and Allen didn't find a way of getting him the ball. And in fact, was like he missed. It was a bad miss. It wasn't even like he just, look, it's 6 inches out of his grasp. It was like that was nowhere near him.
I mean, when you first saw it, you thought maybe it's a miscommunication and everything until you see the whole play unfold. It's like, no, they schemed it open, and he missed it. Credit the Eagles, though, up front. I just touch on their defense. Jalix Hunt with 2 sacks, came free on a stunt. Jalen Phillips with another sack. I mean, I think the Phillips addition is so underrated because they just added another body up there. You mentioned Jalen Carter and the number of times that he could just destroy plays. Wrecked Osiris Torrance on a play where Allen had no chance on a sack. Moro Ojomo. When Jalen Carter's there, they're deep again on that defensive line. Has that residual effect. Linebackers were flying around making plays. They were hitting hard early on. You just felt that Eagles defense. And again, we keep referencing this 2023 collapse from the Eagles, but that was a both sides of the ball collapse. The difference this year is the Eagles still have an elite defense. And I don't know how far that's going to carry them because the offense is still a concern. The fact that they're so predictable that they could put 3 scoring drives together in the first half, 3 in a row, and then you're just like, they might go 5 in a row. They might punt 5 straight times. And like I'm just like, I was expecting this. They went 3 and out.
Yeah,
their last 4 straight drives. Like, I was just expecting this to happen. I was in part because the Bills were a good second half team, but I'm expecting this Eagles offense to just disappear. And again, sometimes it happens in the first half and they show life in the second half. The fact that you can expect a part in the game where they're going to punt 5 or 6 straight times is concerning for the Eagles, even though they pulled off the win.
Yeah, because it's the same story, right? Nothing changed. It was all built off, let's just throw the ball at A.J. Brown and hope that he's better than the guy covering him for the first half, right? And even then, I think they got kind of screwed a bit. I think Tre'Davious White should have been done for pass interference on that deep shot into the end zone. He's got A.J. Brown's arm hooked. And I think this is a case of, I've been noticing this a bit more this year. I don't love A.J. Brown's body language, and I don't normally like talking about body language as a thing because I think usually people put all kinds of stuff in there projection wise that is silly. But A.J. Brown plays with a nonchalance sometimes that I don't think does him any favors in situations like this, where Tre'Davious White has basically hooked one of his arms. So he has to go at this catch one-handed. But he goes at it so nonchalantly one-handed that it just sort of looks like that's the way he attempted to catch the ball. And I honestly think the official just missed the fact that had he wanted to try and catch it with 2 hands, he couldn't because Tre'Davious White had hold of it. So I think that was pass interference that they got away with, Buffalo, and could have been a huge play for Philadelphia. There's also the play where replay found an incompletion where nobody was thinking about one for Devontae Smith and challenge took it away. It's like, does the ball move? Yes. Does he ever really lose control of it? Only if we're looking via instant replay and super slow-mo in the rain. It's like he caught the ball. Again, that's another one of those ones where I think replay is changing the result of a play that nobody's really questioning. So a couple of those went against Philadelphia, but this is their offense, right? It's like if our playmakers don't make a play, or if replay takes away a play that our playmakers make, or if a guy holds somebody and we don't get the flag, we don't really have that much here. There's no easy button.
And in a game where they got Saquon going early and he looked really good, but then when it's like, all right, it's like the whole second half got into 4-minute mode, 4 minutes, run the clock mode. And it was like run to no. And Bills are ready for it, right? There's no creativity there other than trust AJ Brown and Devontae Smith to make plays. It's interesting. Is AJ Brown like too strong? Because you know how like sometimes quarterbacks get roughing calls when they're when they're not Cam Newton or Josh Allen because they get smoked because they're lighter. But the bigger guys, the hit doesn't look as hard because they're thicker. And I wonder if that affects AJ Brown a little bit, or just like sell it more.
Yeah, look, I don't want to look. Josh Allen goes the other extreme, right? Like Josh Allen is a big, huge, strong dude who flops worse than maybe anybody else in the NFL, right? I don't like that. I don't want to see everybody flopping to try and get every call possible. I think there are times though where you at least need to draw their attention to the foul. You know what I mean? Don't flop, but at least sell it and make it obvious that you are being fouled. Like this arm that I would like to use to catch this touchdown pass is literally being held so that I have to go at it one-handed, left-handed. And you were so casual with the way you did it. I didn't even really notice that your arm was being held by the other dude. That's the problem, right? You don't need to flop to the ground and be like, just make it obvious that like, dude, I can't get hold of this arm. He's got hold of it.
All right. So coming out of this, I focused a lot on the Josh Allen missed throw because I think it's significant. Had they won this game, the Bills would have been the number 5 seed, which we would say on paper is the coveted spot for the wild card, not just because it's the highest seed, because it's playing the AFC North winner. So you're talking about going to Pittsburgh or going to Baltimore rather than going to Jacksonville or New England or
where we already
said
Denver. Like, they would be a touchdown favorite in that game.
Yes. Especially if it's Pittsburgh. Like maybe the Ravens are a tighter matchup for Buffalo, but it is, you go into Pittsburgh, Buffalo's favored by a lot. They already beat them 26-7. So the Bills go from the 5 seed to the 7 seed, or the potential 5 seed with the win to the 7 seed in this one. So as of right now, they'd be going to New England in round 1. They have the Jets next week, so they can win and move up a little bit. We'll see what ends up happening there. Eagles are also the 3 seed in the NFC. They would still have a chance to get to the 2. So they still have something to play for here as far as seeding if they care. But like right now, the Rams would be coming to Philadelphia versus, say, the 7 seed being the Packers. So there's still something there as far as seeding in the NFC.
Yep.
Good? Mm-hmm. All right, let's go. Sunday Night Football. An absolute – this is a shootout, Sam? This count as a shootout?
Yeah.
San Francisco 49ers, 42. Chicago Bears, 38. This game – what's that?
And therefore was the best game of the week because points equals good.
Everybody loves points. Started with first pass, Brock Purdy, pick 6. It looked like, oh, what's going on? Bears came to play. But then the Niners answered. This game was tied at 7-7, 14-14, 21-21, 28-28, and 35-35. A back-and-forth game and a fun one that everybody likes because there was a lot of points.
Yeah, everybody liked it. All people want to see is an arena league game where it's like 55-57 and it's just who has the ball last. That's the game. That's what people look for when it comes to entertaining NFL games, apparently. It was fun. Like the initial pick 6, really good play. Jalen Johnson with a pass breakup bounces into TJ Edwards' hands. He just houses it. I'm not 100% sure why Brock Purdy threw that pass in the first place. Like Jalen Johnson's got like pretty hard inside leverage, never moves backwards at the during the play. See, he's playing that. I mean, that's the route that he's waiting for, and you threw it right into it. That felt kind of risky. Also, really costly potential play from San Francisco's point of view because chasing down the pick 6, Trent Williams tweaks a hamstring and he goes into the blue tent, and then he's done for the day. So I don't know how severe that is, but we've talked before, hamstrings are that awkward injury that lingers or causes problems. Anyway, you lose one of the best offensive tackles in NFL history to that bad play. Didn't end up costing them because the 49ers offense is still able to absolutely cook.
Yeah, they really do. Let's start with the Niners and that offense. Put up 40 plus against the Colts on Monday Night Football. I mean, they looked unstoppable again. Brock Purdy, now he's got an incredibly low sack rate, now lowest sack rate in the NFL, picking apart the defense. I thought, look, I mentioned how I think how one-sided so many of these teams are. Like, I don't trust either of these defenses.
No.
Come playoff time. So the Niners are on the other end, right? All these other teams, like, I only trust their D. I only trust their D. Like, I only trust the Niners offense right now. For the Bears, I don't know if I only trust their offense, but I think I trust that side of the ball more than their defense, unless they're forcing turnovers, right? I mean, it's like, can they keep up the turnover thing? And they did for at least one play. But other than that, they got torched. And Purdy's just sitting in there making good decision after good decision after the pick, good decision after good decision, hitting the dig routes. Then he's got that scramble drill play. Unreal. I mean, we've talked about Purdy a lot on the show in the past about how good he is as a scrambler. I think his spatial awareness is, I got to whisper it so not everybody, his spatial awareness, as I've said before on the show before, I've made the comparison on the show before, that Brock Purdy's spatial awareness, this one part of his game, is Mahomesian. Even.
Yeah.
Spatial awareness. Because Brock Purdy, who has below average velocity on the football for an NFL quarterback, that's not an insult, it's a description, is able to get away with crossbody throws. He's able to get away with like the Brett Favre throwback across his body because I think he's got great spatial awareness. And that scramble drill play where he gets out there and then jukes two defenders and then finds the open receiver, like he has it when it comes to outside the pocket magic. He's got that one step faster than the defense scrambling ability, the quickness. And remember, early in the year, he was playing hurt. He battled through all the turf toe. Now that he's healthy again, Purdy is absolutely dealing right now.
It's in my notes as well. I don't know how you can watch that play and not come to the conclusion that that is Mahomesian. That one play. I'm not saying he is particularly Mahomesian stylistically himself, but that play was a play Mahomes would make. He makes two different guys miss, scrambles in a little circle, and then just when you think he's going to take off and run it himself, he uses that to move the defenders and just dinks the ball into the gap that created. Like that is Mahomes has made an entire career out of doing those plays. And Chris, more than most people, would lose his mind on the broadcast at those plays. And it's the same thing. And Chris said it, like, that's why they paid Purdy all that money, right? All that money that so many people think he's not worth. That's the play. That's the play that he makes that Mac Jones doesn't. And Mac Jones plays really well in this offense. We've seen that this year. Mac Jones can probably operate this offense to a very high level, and maybe they can still go on a run in the playoffs with Mac Jones a quarterback. But that's the play that Brock Purdy can make and Mac Jones can't make within that offense. And that's why Shanahan and the 49ers think he's worth a ton of money, and why I think they're probably accurate that Purdy brings this special sauce to the table right at the point where that offense runs out of the answers, right? Where they don't have an answer schematically. Purdy finds an answer, and it's a value add that he brings to that offense that not many other quarterbacks do.
My biggest question for Purdy earlier in the year is he seemed to have a bit of a blind spot over the middle of the field. Every bad decision was middle of the field. He had the 3 picks against Carolina, just missing misreads. Early in the season against Seattle, remember they pulled way back in week 1 because they're going to have this rematch Saturday night. Just a couple passes, middle of the field, just didn't see it. He's gotten rid of those plays because other than that, he's played great. And now he's healthy. And we're just weeks removed, Sam. People don't remember stuff. Just weeks removed from Mac Jones is better than Brock Purdy. Like, is Mac Jones the better starter? Now, nuanced check the mic discussion was, well, how hurt is Brock Purdy, right? Because if he really can't move and if he's actually playing hurt, you could make that argument. Maybe right now Mac Jones is better. But now that Purdy's healthy, like, I don't know how you could ever make that argument knowing the history of Shanahan. Mac Jones is very much like Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Give him the reads, paint by numbers, hit the open throw. But ever since Brock Purdy took over, we said the difference between the Garoppolos and other systematic quarterbacks that Shanahan's had is Purdy can make things happen outside of structure. In structure, he's great. Outside of structure, he's great. And we're seeing all of that these last few weeks. I think Purdy's the best quarterback Shanahan has had since Matt Ryan. And maybe you make the argument that Purdy's going to be better than Matt Ryan at some point. I don't know. But Matt Ryan was a high-end quarterback and the only quarterback at that level that I think Shanahan had for more than a year. and he won an MVP and was like breaking records. And Purdy's, I think, the closest thing to that. And we're starting to see that these last few weeks. So just had to say all that. They're playing really well offensively. I don't love the Bears defense overall. This is the most running room I think we've seen for Christian McCaffrey for a while, or at least the shiftiest we've seen from him as well.
Yep.
They ran for 200, by the way.
Yeah, they had a near urban adjacent.
Oh, yeah, it was. 300, almost 300 on the ground or through the air and 200 on the ground. So McCaffrey was running well. Ricky Pearsall making big plays. They didn't even have George Kittle this week. Was trying to give it a go. Couldn't do it. So Purdy's just spreading the ball around. Jawan Jennings with a big 38-yarder, which eventually became the game winner. Just outstanding offensive effort from the Niners and in a career of great coaching, especially on the offensive side of the ball for Kyle Shanahan. Maybe the best job he's done all year to get this, to deal with all the injuries, both sides of the ball, to get this offense humming, to do it for half the season with Mac Jones, with your backup. Unbelievable job by Kyle Shanahan and the Niners. And I can't believe we're saying this, Sam. Guilty for writing off the 49ers throughout the season. I can't believe we're talking about them playing for the number 1 seed next week.
Yeah.
And home field throughout the playoffs, in which they're the host city for the playoffs. I cannot believe we've gotten to that point here in week 17, but tons of credit to the Niners for getting there.
It is crazy. Like, it still doesn't really feel like it's a thing that can happen. It felt, for a long time they were winning so many games. You're like, okay, when Purdy's back and when everybody's healthy, like they're gonna win enough that they're in the playoffs. And it sort of, that was just the ceiling of everybody's expectations and thought process, that nobody really thought through. Well, what happens if they keep getting better and keep looking really good and keep winning all these games and beat a couple of really good teams? Well, all of a sudden they've got a shot at the number 1 seed. And I still feel like this defense is so bad that it's going to be the thing that puts a cap on where they can go. But they're already showing that they can beat all these teams and potentially have the number 1 seed. And that, it buys you a game off in the playoffs for aside from anything else. That's a game where your defense can't be exposed because it's sitting on the couch. And then, home field advantage itself being a huge thing. And then potentially a Super Bowl home field advantage if they made it that far. It is kind of wild that this team, is a real contender with the current level of defense that they have.
So the way Purdy's playing with McCaffrey, the ability to spread the ball, I still don't fully trust the Niners defense. I do love, like, say, the final play call. You've got the game on the line once again, because we got to talk from a Bears perspective here. They fought hard, man. Like, Caleb Williams threw some absolute dots in a shootout, missed a couple others there, but like, putting the ball on Colston Loveland. We saw the Bears' young playmakers once again. Colston Loveland with 6 for 94 and a touchdown. Luther Burden with 138 yards and 8 catches and a touchdown. And I know he had at least one bad drop in there that he would like back. But you just see, like, Burden just moves differently, man. And I think the way Loveland is being used as a receiver and a move him around type of mismatch weapon. I know our friend Nate Tice had Colston Loveland ahead of Tyler Warren in his draft rankings. Mm-hmm. And I could feel like I'm not out on Tyler Warren by any means, but like, you could feel it a little bit with Loveland. You could feel it when they need a play. That dude is a mismatch. He is a mismatch playmaker. And just the combination of Caleb Williams thrown to those 2 young receivers, I think very encouraging for the Bears that they could hang in this shootout and, come down to that final play.
I love that it felt like Chris had just discovered yards per route run as a statistic on the broadcast during the week, and kept talking about Luther Burden. Like, Luther Burden's got one of the best yards per route run figures in the NFL. And it's just backing up what we've been saying all year long, which is good things happen when you get the ball in Luther Burden's hands, because he's a rare athlete and freaky with the ball in his hands. It's kind of, they're actually dialing him really up as a big part of this offense and getting him the football. And it's a shame for him that he dropped the ball late. And that was, that's a really important drop like that. I'm not going to say it was the difference between winning and losing, but it definitely put a body blow towards them losing. They had, only a couple of downs left and he dropped a critical one of them. But he's so good. He really is.
A couple of the plays in there too, just Caleb Williams free play, scramble drill, throws just a 40-yard laser beam to Colston Loveland for a touchdown. There's a lot of excitement, I think, for what the Bears offense can be. Again, I don't trust the Niners defense necessarily, but I think it's going to sound weird they gave up 38 to the Bears, but the final play call, like Ben Solak broke it down. They dropped their defensive tackles into the passing lanes. I feel like Robert Saleh has done an excellent job.
Yeah.
Just getting them to this point, the Niners, given they have, even when Nick Bosa was healthy, very little pass rush, but they have 0 pass rushers who could just create havoc. They just don't have it. They're missing the best linebacker in the NFL. Like, you can't overrate how much they're missing here. And I don't even know if the end of the yardage or any of the stats are going to be there, but Saleh is doing a great job. And just like a little play call like that, game on the line, took everything away from Caleb Williams, forced a low percentage throw. That stuff's adding up. And maybe that'll be just enough in the playoffs. But I think Saleh is doing a great job given just the lack of personnel on that side of the ball for the Niners.
Yeah, Saleh's doing really impressive work. And this is why it feels like he's doing so much good, and yet they're still giving up tons of points and tons of yards against a lot of teams. Like, that's why I still feel like that defense should or could be the cap on what this team can do. But they're beating these teams. I mean, ultimately, at some point, it's like maybe they are just going to win every single game through the playoffs in a massive shootout like this. And the defense, it doesn't matter that it's terrible. The offense is good enough that it offsets it the whole way. So like, there is that. I think Saleh's done a really impressive job. And even in this game, there were a bunch of plays. The final play, there was a bunch of plays throughout it where he did a lot of creative things, schemed some stuff open, but they're just so lacking in talent that it's still not enough.
It was a fun game, though. I agree. I think defensive struggles can be really fun games when like a first down or even just getting into opposing territory feels like a win. Like, you could still have that same level of drama. This one was different because, Purdy overcomes the initial pick six, and you just have to you have to answer. You just have to answer drive after drive. That's why it's more entertaining, because each team just answered. And I thought this was another playoff caliber game where the Bears showed that they could hang in a shootout, and they did it different from a game flow perspective too, because they still like to run the ball and control the action, and they didn't get to do that as much. It was a lot more pressure on Caleb Williams, a lot more pass game. But I just think the reliance on the young pass catchers show what they're capable of. But the Bears defense is a concern for me as well. They've struggled throughout the year against the run, showed that again this year, because as McCaffrey just hit 425 touches. It's one of like 20 guys in the last 20 years, not many, or maybe 10 guys. Ton of touches for McCaffrey. Remember, he's on those charts as far as like rushing yards over expectation. Like, it's awful. He's been a high volume, kind of like low efficiency running back this year, but he was gashing the Bears defense in this one. And McCaffrey's still great in the pass game. I'm just saying, from a run game perspective, it had been high volume, low efficiency, but the Bears run defense, absolutely concerning. If they're not forcing turnovers on the back end, their lack of pass rush, I think, shows up. And so it's a bit of a concern for both teams defensively, but that's why I end up with a shootout. It was a fun back and forth battle. And it's like, 3 out of 4 weeks now, Caleb Williams with needing a touchdown on a final drive. You have the Packers game, it's an interception. Last week, Packers game, they score the touchdown, then the game winner in overtime. And this week, they come up short. I thought they were a little off from a game management perspective at the end. And then the burden drop did hurt when they would have been moving the chains there.
I mean, I feel like, I think Caleb Williams is on the precipice of being a great quarterback, but he isn't quite there yet. And the things that are holding him back from being there right now are problems when a team finds itself every week needing him to execute a game-winning drive to win the game, right? And they had 6 wins when trailing with 2 minutes left in the game, right, this season. So when it got to this final drive, Chris on the broadcast made the point. He's like, I honestly think Chicago is happier being down with the ball in their hands than they would be in the opposite situation, right? Like, they want to be exactly where they are right now, which is Caleb Williams got the ball in his hands with under 2 minutes to go, and we let him go to work. The problem is he's still just missing too many of these throws where it's like, you're one of the few quarterbacks in the NFL that just does genuinely have the arm to get it basically wherever you want it, regardless of where your feet are or what your mechanics are. And he just doesn't all the time. And right before the Burden drop, Caleb Williams effectively missed a go-ahead touchdown. I mean, the guy was wide open, and I think he would have scored on that play if Caleb had hit him. Certainly, if he'd hit him with enough, like somewhere enough that he could have kept running, as opposed to hit him and he had to stop. And like that's a go-ahead touchdown you missed there, and that opens up the possibility. Well, then what if somebody doesn't make a play the next time? What if Burden times his drop for the next play, and now you're in trouble because now you're down to like, we're running out of downs just to keep this thing alive. It's the little inconsistencies, the little inaccuracies, the little inefficiencies that Caleb Williams still has, that if he cleans those up, I mean, then he's in the Drake May category of like, now you're just in the MVP conversation, because the special stuff you bring to the table is nuts and you're winning all these games. And if you just tidy up those couple of plays that are costing you, well, now you're like the number one seed and you're as good as anybody.
I'm watching that play again, and it almost kind of goes back to the pre-draft analysis on Caleb Williams that I kept bringing up. Was we've seen all the special. We saw all the special last night, man, throwing big time throws on the run, from the pocket, whatever. And I always come back to, I know we throw Mahomes out there a lot, but what made Mahomes special was not like the highlight reel plays, but just winning from the pocket consistently. That play you're talking about, the Niners did a good job. Again, Saleh heating him up. And so they blitz, but it was busted coverage on the back end. And he tried to
he sees
outrun he tried to beat the blitz with athleticism. And that's where Caleb Williams will take the next step. When you can know when to win with athleticism and talent and arm talent, and know when to just throw behind the blitz. And if he just hits the shallow behind the blitz, it's probably a walk-in touchdown, because the Niners, or it's at least 20 yards with 40 seconds left. And he tries to outrun the blitz and throw it off balance, and he still had a chance to hit the throw. He could have it would have been a special looking throw, and he just and he bounces it. Yeah, those are the little plays, I think, for Caleb Williams, as we're nitpicking his development, where if it's simply just read it quicker, throw behind the blitz, you might have a touchdown there.
Yeah, and it's like he sees it, and he's got the arm to get it to that spot, and he just doesn't on this occasion. And it's like, those are the plays. Again, I think he played really well yesterday. He made a bunch of plays. He kept them in the game. All these are good things. But that's the play that's keeping him from being in that echelon of like elite special quarterbacks that I think he's on the verge of getting.
Yep. It's close, man. Purdy's not missing many of those throws right now. He is hot right now. He is number one in the league, EPA per play, no matter which measure you give. If he's a qualifier, he would be number one in ESPN's QBR metric if he was a qualifier. Purdy's playing outstanding football right now, and they're headed for next Saturday night, a battle for the number one seed, Brock Purdy and the 49ers against Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks. Bears still clinging to the number 2 seed. They have the tiebreaker over the Eagles because of the win. So they've got the 2 right now. They'll play the Lions next week. Eagles have the Commanders. So if the Bears want to keep the 2, which would set up another game against the Packers, that's who will have the 7 seed. If the Bears want to keep the 2, they have to win next week, most likely, against the Lions. Good?
Mm-hmm.
Good show, man. That was fun. 16 games, over 3 hours. A lot to break down here. So we have week 18. We get the whole schedule. We're going to go normal schedule this week. New Year's Eve's Wednesday. New Year's Day is Thursday. We're still working. So we'll be here Wednesday at 9. We'll be here Thursday at 9, previewing all of the week 18 action. So and we'll be going live tonight. Rams, Falcons, instant reaction. Remember, if the Falcons win, get this weird quirk where the Panthers could get into the playoffs even with a loss next week if the Falcons win out here, their next 2 games. So keep an eye on Rams Falcons tonight. Sound good?
Yep.
All right. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again on Wednesday with more Check the Mic.